Join me as I review every Pokemon League arc from the anime. From the Indigo League to the Masters 8 tournament, we'll be going through Ash's epic journey to becoming world champion. First up is the Indigo League.
Episode 1. All fired up. It's time for Ash's first ever Pokemon League competition. The whole anime series has been building up to this moment, so of course Ash is excited. But before we get to the actual league, we're introduced to Mr. Goodshow, the president of the Pokemon League, and even learn of the Flame of Moltres, which is used during the opening ceremony of the league. Now of course, since Ash is the main character, he gets the chance to be a torch runner along with Brock and Misty. But unfortunately, they aren't the only ones who wanted to get their hands on it, cause Team Rocket wants it as well. I actually have no idea why they want the torch since it doesn't really serve any purpose besides helping start the league, so yeah. It was honestly just a dumb excuse to get Team Rocket involved to try to ruin things. Now here's the thing, Team Rocket actually gets away with the torch, but since the flame goes out, they have the bright idea to go back and steal some more. This was pretty annoying, because an important moment such as the opening ceremony of the league was pretty much ruined by Team Rocket. And you wanna know what else is kinda dumb? Why was Ash the only person trying to stop them? The league is filled with hundreds of participating trainers, but you're telling me Ash is the only one who actually cares? Come on, man. It seemed like Team Rocket was gonna win this time by using the flame against Ash, but then the flame becomes Moltres for some reason and then makes Team Rocket blast off. As random as that was, I'm not gonna lie, that was pretty cool. And once that's done, the league can finally commence. Honestly, this episode was a mixed bag. All the Team Rocket stuff kinda ruined it, but there were actually some pretty good moments in it. Like when Ash arrived at the league, and then we got the reintroduction of Gary. I thought that was cool. Another great moment is when Ash can't sleep in anticipation of the first day, so he heads to the stadium and reassures to himself that he can do this. This is such an iconic moment that is very reminiscent of the shout of Ash that we get during the theme song. I loved it. This episode's rating is a 6 out of 10. Episode 2. Round 1. Begin. Now that the league introduction is out of the way, it's time for Ash's first battle. It's revealed that his first match will be in the water field against Mandy, the Astounding. Misty suggests that Ash borrow some of her Pokemon, but he's like, nah, I'm good with Squirtle. It isn't until Professor Oak calls that Ash decides to bring someone else along, Krabby, which hasn't been in a single battle in its life. Great. Misty keeps telling Ash how much of a bad idea this might be, but he still goes through with it. Not only does he send out his inexperienced Krabby into a Pokemon League match, but he also makes it go up against Mandy's Grass-type Executor. Wow. Just wow. Now you'd think this would end in total failure for Ash, which it seemed like it was going in that direction, but Krabby actually beats Executor. That's crazy. And as if things weren't even more unexpected, Krabby actually evolves into a bigger Krabby, Kingler. That's awesome. It then proceeds to easily defeat Mandy's Seadra and then his Golbat. That's insane. Ash pretty much swept his first Pokemon League match, and to think he was nervous. This battle was the complete definition of beginner's luck. Nobody expected Ash to win this well. He probably did so well after seeing Gary win his battle. He wants to prove that he's good enough to compete in the Pokemon League, and for now, it seems like he is. Huge props to Kingler though. It never had a battle in its life, yet it ends up kicking ass. I loved it. My favorite moment definitely has to be when Kingler is facing Golbat and it one-shots it with Hyper Beam. That was pretty cool. This episode's rating is an 8 out of 10. Episode 3. Fire and Ice. The episode begins right in the middle of Ash's second battle. Oops, my bad. I mean the ending, cause both trainers are down to their final Pokemon. Squirtle easily takes down his opponent's Nidorino, and with that, Ash moves on to the third round. I'm impressed. He's actually doing pretty good. Would have been better if we were shown the full battle, but it's okay, cause we got another one coming. Except that it jumps to the middle as well. What the heck? At least this battle shows us a little bit more though. It's Kingler versus Cloyster. And after using Crabhammer multiple times, Cloyster is out. Seems like Ash has this in the bag, cause his opponent sends out his Fire-type Arcanine. But nope. A single Dragon Rage and Kingler is out. So now it's up to Pikachu to finish the job. Arcanine tries to gain the advantage by melting the ice battlefield with Fire Blast, but this actually backfires, cause all the water helps supercharge Pikachu's Thunderbolt. And with that, Ash wins the battle. Those were both pretty solid wins, but it does suck that we couldn't see the whole thing. And you might be wondering why that is. Well, it's because they decided to give us 12 minutes of filler in between. You see, after the battle at the beginning of the episode, most of it is spent wasting so much pointless time. It's all about Ash getting hungry, so he has to leave to get some food, but he's so hungry that he forgets to take his Pokemon to the Pokemon Center. So after aimlessly walking around for a bit, he finds a place to eat, and then after that, he finally decides to take his Pokemon to the Pokemon Center. But oh wait, they're all full, so he has no choice but to go to this out-of-the-way sketchy Pokemon Center that's totally not run by Team Rocket except that it actually is, only to have Team Rocket blast off after trying to take Pikachu. Are you kidding me? What the heck is this? We could have seen more of Ash's battles, but instead, we had to sit through this boring nonsense. This episode's rating is a 4 out of 10. Episode 4. The 4th Round Rumble. Now instead of focusing on Ash right away, this episode starts off by showing Gary lose. Right off the bat, it catches you off guard cause, shit, Ash's rival is out. It's kinda disappointing that Gary loses before he can even battle Ash, but the good thing about this is that it really puts things into perspective for Ash. Gary, the guy Ash is constantly trying to catch up to, is taken out by someone else. That just goes to show that the league is full of powerful trainers. This almost makes him consider giving up, but thanks to Brock, he's motivated and ready for round 4. Now this battle was actually pretty good. Ash is up against Jeanette Fisher, and he starts out by using his Bulbasaur against her Beedrill. Now what's great about this was that Bulbasaur not only defeats Beedrill, but also Jeanette's Scyther, 2 bug types that are troublesome for grass types. Seems like Bulbasaur was gonna get a sweep like Kingler, especially when Jeanette sends out Bellsprout as her final Pokemon.
Boy, if you don't get—
But I guess you really can't judge a book by its cover, cause Bellsprout actually takes out Bulbasaur. But don't worry, it's all good, cause Pikachu's got this.
Pikachu is out of the match.
Dang it! Things look bad for Ash, but with the surprise twist, he sends out his Muck. Now this moment was awesome, cause this is the first time we've seen Muck battle, and it actually does well. Bellsprout couldn't do a thing now, which is pretty hilarious. Muck was taking all of its hits like it was nothing, and all it took was one body slam to end the battle. This episode did a great job of showing off Ash's battling skills, because even though Pikachu took an L, Bulbasaur and Muck did really good. It was also nice to see Professor Oak and Ash's mom show up to cheer him on. And lastly, Team Rocket doesn't interrupt Ash in this episode. They just stuck to selling snacks and stuff, which is great. Let them do their own thing so we can focus on the battles. This episode's rating is a 9 out of 10. Episode 5. A Friend Indeed. In this episode, we get the introduction of the better version of Ash, Richie. They meet in the most casual way ever. Since it's the day off before the battles at Indigo Stadium, Ash's mom decides to cook to celebrate Ash's latest win. Afterwards, the gang heads to an elevator and Richie steps in as well, and that's how they meet. Now for some reason there was a power outage, so they end up getting stuck there. But luckily, Richie thinks of the idea of using Pikachu's electricity to jumpstart the elevator. This, as well as how well he got along with Pikachu, was great foreshadowing of the fact that he has a Pikachu of his own as well. After this, Team Rocket shows up, again, steals everyone's Pokemon, so it's up to Ash and Richie to save the day. Except they fail. So the rest of the episode is dedicated to Ash and Richie getting to know each other, as well as working together to get their Pokemon back. This is actually, oh my god. This is actually a pretty solid episode. It's a great way to introduce a new friend slash rival for Ash, especially since they're both very similar. It's also awesome to see Richie in action because he's using the same Pokemon Ash uses. Team Rocket even notes this by calling them the Twerp Twins, which, not gonna lie, that was pretty funny. The only problem with this episode is that it's happening during the middle of the league, so it just feels like a waste of an episode. We go from an episode of non-stop action to an episode with a pretty generic plot, Team Rocket causing trouble again. You almost forget that this is happening during a Pokemon League because the majority of the episode is spent in the middle of the woods. This really sucks too, because I actually like this episode. It would have been better if we got this rich introduction before the league, or at the very least during the very beginning so it doesn't interrupt the pacing like it does now. At least this episode ends with the cliffhanger that Ash's 5th round opponent is Richie. This episode's rating is a 5 out of 10. Episode 6. Friend and foe alike. Alright, here we are. The epic battle between Ash and Richie is what I thought we were gonna get. Instead, how about another Team Rocket episode? What's that? You don't want that? Well, too bad, because that's what we got. The episode begins with Ash being bummed out that he has to face his friend, but thanks to talking to Nurse Joy and Richie, he's ready to make it the best battle he's ever had. The only problem is that Team Rocket tricks Ash and kidnaps him so that he can't make it to his match. Then the rest of the episode is all about Ash's escape and him trying to make it on time, which he clearly isn't. Now Team Rocket has been pretty annoying this whole league, but man, do they push it to the limit in this episode. No matter what Ash did, they just would not blast off. It isn't until the near end of the episode where Ash is finally able to get rid of them, but at the cost of exhausting Pikachu and Pidgeotto. Oh yeah, and now we're supposed to squeeze the battle between Ash and Richie in the last 5 minutes. Now this battle is actually pretty intense and fast paced. You can almost feel the tension between the two. Now things really become problematic when Ash loses Squirtle and Pikachu, cause now he can only use one more Pokemon. So since Ash was backed into a corner, he had no choice but to use Charizard. Now it makes quick work of Zippo because it likes to prove itself against other fire types, but once Sparky came out, it just didn't care. And since Charizard refused to battle, Ash is disqualified from the match. Are you kidding me? That's how Ash's league run ends? This was such a bad ending. You'd think if Ash lost, he'd at least go out giving it his all. But no, this was just horrible writing. Who thought this was a good idea? What's even more annoying is the fact that Ash wouldn't even be in this situation if it wasn't for Team Rocket. They took up most of the episode and would just not go away. Because of them, Ash's team was worn out when it came time to face Richie. So Ash had to use Charizard if it meant he had a slight chance of winning. Well, guess what? He didn't. This episode's rating is a 2 out of 10. The final episode. Friends till the end. Alright, after the tragedy that was the last episode, this one begins with Ash being all depressed after his loss against Richie. Misty tries to cheer him up, but it doesn't really work. Professor Oak puts him in his place, however, by stating that Ash could have won if he trained his Charizard correctly. Now after this, the gang goes to watch Richie's battle, but then he loses too. When Ash goes over to talk to him, he notices that Richie isn't so bummed out about losing like he was. And this is cause Richie explains that it's alright to lose, cause it just means he can learn from this and get better for next time. This was great because this is clearly the mentality that Ash adopts in later leagues. Imagine if he kept crying like a baby every time he loses. That would get annoying real quick. So this was actually a nice learning experience for him. Then Team Rocket shows up and whatever, nobody cares. And afterwards, the episode ends with the closing ceremony and an epic moment where Ash is reflecting on his past league battles. Even though there wasn't that much going on, what I really liked about this episode is the fact that it served as a big moment of reflection for Ash. It was his first ever league, so of course he wouldn't take a loss so well. But thanks to this episode, Ash is now motivated once again to continue his goal to be a Pokemon master. This episode's rating is a 7 out of 10. This league's overall rating is a 5.9 out of 10, so it's pretty average. Now to be fair, this league is the first, so it doesn't really have any other ones to learn from. But I think that's the whole point of this league. What's really great about it is that this is the first time we get to see Ash participate in some serious battles. And boy, does he surprise us all. He actually shows that he knows what he's doing, like when he decides to bring Muk to the grass battlefield just in case his opponent uses a grass type. That's really smart. It's also cool that Ash didn't just stick to his core 5 Pokemon of the series. He also brings Muk, as I mentioned before, and even Krabby, 2 Pokemon that he hasn't used at all. Now as well as Ash was doing in the first 4 rounds, he really did get lucky for the most part. It isn't until he goes up against Richie that you really start to notice that Ash still has some more training to do, especially with this Charizard. Granted, he probably wouldn't have lost in the first place if it wasn't for Team Rocket. And that actually brings me to this league's biggest problem, the pacing. For a Pokemon League arc, the Indigo League sure does have a hard time on focusing on actual league battles. Instead, they want to give us generic Team Rocket plot. Hooray! Seriously, it felt like Team Rocket took up half the league's episodes. Episode 1, they interrupt the running of the torch and the opening ceremony. Episode 3 focuses on Team Rocket trying to steal Pikachu instead of actual league matches. The entirety of Episode 5 is about Team Rocket stealing everyone's Pokemon. And the worst offender, Episode 6, where they would just not leave Ash alone and didn't want to blast off, which made Ash arrive late to his battle with Richie and cost him the match because he had to either use tired out Pokemon or ones that he normally wouldn't use. Nice. And notice, the best episodes of this league were the ones where Team Rocket mostly just stayed in the background.
Coincidence? I think not!
I'm pretty sure later leagues learn from this because Team Rocket becomes less and less annoying in them. But anyways, aside from those problems, this league did a good job of setting the standard for how a Pokemon League arc should go. So now it's up to the others to learn and improve from them.
Next is the Orange League.
Episode 1. Hello, Pomelo. Since Ash defeated the 4 members of the Orange Crew, now it's time to take on the final challenge, Drake, the leader of the Orange Crew. No, not that Drake, although it'd be cool. This episode did a great job of hyping up this battle. Unlike other leagues where it's a competition to the top, this one takes you straight to the champion. No filler, no rivals, it gets straight to the point, even though the Orange League was filler. Anyways, Ash is all registered and then realizes it's a 6-on-6 full battle, so he's gotta get his team ready. Only problem is that Snorlax won't wake up. Boy, if you don't get your Majin Buu ass up. Well, since he's out of commission, Ash decides to bring Tauros instead, even though it never battled before. Really going for that Indigo League beginner's luck again, huh? Now for the battle. Drake leads off with Ditto, and Ash with Pikachu. So it basically ends up being a head-to-head Pikachu battle. This was pretty cool. Although it seems like Drake had the upper hand, Pikachu comes through in the end with a Thunderbolt Tail Whip. Next up is Onix versus Squirtle. They try to make this tense, but it's pretty obvious that Squirtle was gonna win. So Ash is doing pretty good. The last important matchup of the episode is Gengar versus Lapras, and it ends with an Ice Beam Nightshade collision. So this episode was pretty good. We got a decent start to the battle, and even got a pretty good introduction and explanation of the league. It even does a good job of hyping up the eventual conclusion with Drake's Dragonite, by really making its presence known all around the island, showing that it's probably gonna be a huge threat, so it makes you look forward to that. This episode's rating is an 8 out of 10. The final episode. Enter the Dragonite. Alright, we continue with the battle, and we see that Lapras and Gengar are both unable to battle. Apparently this is the first time Drake has lost 3 Pokemon in a row. Really hyping up Ash here. Afterwards, Tauros gets his first ever win against Venusaur, making it 4 in a row. This battle actually seems pretty easy for Ash now that I think about it, especially when you see him whip out Charizard, which tanks a Thunder Punch and Thunder from Electabuzz. But now the real battle begins when Drake sends out his pseudo-legendary Dragonite. Alright, this is it, the battle we've all been waiting for. Charizard versus Dragonite, the epic dragon battle, even though Charizard isn't a dragon. Let's freaking go! Fuck! Yeah, Dragonite was definitely a threat, especially since it's literally the most broken Pokemon in the entire anime. Water Gun, Ice Beam, Slam, Dragon Rage, Thunderbolt, Thunder, Skull Bash, Agility, freaking Hyper Beam. Is this even legal? It had no problem whatsoever mowing down Ash's team and Team Rocket. Yeah, get out of here. All he had left was Pikachu, so that wasn't good. Luckily, Dragonite took lots of damage from every other team member, so all it took was a Thunder from Pikachu to finally take it down. That's what I loved about this episode. Although Dragonite was a monster, Ash's team worked together to slowly whittle it down to victory. My favorite moment was when Pikachu was holding on to Dragonite. It was so intense and also hilarious because you don't want to see him let go. So yeah, in the end, Ash wins, making him the champion of the Orange League. This episode's rating is a 9 out of 10. This league's overall rating is an 8.5 out of 10. It's great! But alright, we had our fun, it's time to get serious now. This isn't a real league. Although it's got a pretty great rating, it's only 2 episodes, so it doesn't really count. But don't let it take away from its merits, cause like I said, it's pretty great, especially for the original series. If you think about it, the entire Orange League saga could be seen as Ash's final challenge to becoming a champion. It's very similar to the games, with him having to face 4 members of the Orange Crew before battling the strongest trainer. So in a way, this is like the anime's version of Ash going through the Elite Four. I think what makes this battle really great is that Ash is doing the best he's ever done. No bullshit excuses for losing like he did during the Indigo League, or even bullshit excuses for winning like some of the gym badges he did in Kanto. He won fair and square. Things like Squirtle learning Hydro Pump and Charizard obeying Ash really helped in this match, and that's actually thanks to the Orange Islands. The point I'm trying to get at is, although the Orange Islands is filler, I feel like way too many people overlook it, including me. And I get it, like, Tracy? Who? Go away, you're boring. But it does have its moments. And that all led up to Ash winning his first ever full battle, which is a pretty big milestone. And honestly, I feel like it's thanks to the Orange Islands that Ash became an even better trainer when he traveled to Johto. So hopefully, this will help shine some light to the very overlooked Orange League.
Hey, hey, hey! All you epic Pokemon trainers? Needle Thing here, and today I got something as unique as a shiny Pokemon. Say hello to Holskird. These handcrafted watches and jewelry are made from natural materials like wood and stone. Each piece is truly one of a kind. No two are alike, just like your Pokemon teams. Holskird is based in Vienna, Austria, where they're all about quality and sustainability. Every product is FSC certified, meaning they are committed to protecting nature just like your favorite grass-type gym leader. Their items are made in small batches to ensure top-tier craftsmanship that lasts. But don't take my word for it, here's a real-life testimonial.
I'm a big fan of Holskirn's products, especially their watch, the Rhino, which was made from leadwood and black. I've been getting lots of compliments for wearing it. Even my wife loves them. And since Holskirn has products for both men and women, I'm definitely considering getting something for her as well. I also gotta shout out the Logician sunglasses, made from leadwood and antique silver. These are pretty sick.
With free express worldwide shipping, you can have your favorite accessory in just 2 to 5 days. Don't wait! Orders placed by February 7th are guaranteed to arrive in time for Valentine's Day. Treat yourself or surprise the special trainers in your life. Click the link in the description and use the code ZACTOSHI to get 15% off your order and a free red gift bag.
Now, time for the Johto League.
Episode 1. Pop goes the Sneasel. In this episode, Ash and the gang are about to make it to Silver Town, where the Johto League will take place. They end up coming across where the Sacred Flame of Ho-Oh is kept before the tournament, but there's a problem. A wild Sneasel is attacking anyone who comes near it, so because of this, the Torch Runners can't commence their running towards the league. On top of that, he's even joined by a Machop and Machoke. What is this, an SOS battle? Luckily, Ash is here to save the day, but he's not alone, because he's also joined by a trainer called Harrison who decides to help as well. Yeah, you probably thought this episode was about Sneasel, right? But not really, it's about Harrison. He's a trainer from Hoenn, a region Ash hasn't been to before. Now sure, most of the episode is about trying to defeat Sneasel, and even Team Rocket has a funny moment where they try to capture it, but in the end, it was really about showing how strong Harrison is. The highlight of the episode definitely had to be when Harrison sends out a Blaziken to face Sneasel. This was awesome. I remember seeing this episode for the first time ever and being blown away by this never before seen Pokemon. And you better believe that Ash and friends felt the same way. What made it even crazier is that Harrison ends up defeating and capturing the Sneasel that gave everyone such a hard time. Dang. The icing on the cake is Harrison revealing that he too was participating in the Johto League, and then he walks off into the distance. Whoa, not a bad episode. Sure, I would have liked to see more league stuff, but it was a good introduction to Ash's league rival. And since he has Sneasel and Blaziken on his team, you just can't wait to see when Ash has to face off against them. This episode's rating is a 7 out of 10. Episode 2. A Claim to Flame. It begins with Ash finishing up his registration for the Johto League, and now he's ready to battle. But before he can even qualify for the actual tournament, he's gonna have to win a series of preliminary battles first. In his first match, he uses Pikachu against Salvador's Furret. Pretty surprising actually, cause according to Misty, Pikachu was at a disadvantage.
I figured a ground Pokemon would be stronger against an electric type.
After this, we get a quick montage of Ash's other preliminary battles featuring Phanpy and Cyndaquil getting wins as well, which is pretty neat. The real standout of the episode has to be Gary though. What I like is how this episode was really about reintroducing him and showing that he isn't the same cocky Gary from the Indigo League. You think that Indigo League Gary would be so chill with this peasant? I don't think so. He has this moment with Ash where he's reminiscing about the start of their journeys, as well as having this whole philosophical talk about future possibilities. This is some obvious foreshadowing about Gary's future goals, so it was cool to see this being set up. But of course, it isn't a Pokemon episode without Team Rocket interrupting in some way. So they prevent Ash from making it to the opening ceremony and steal Pikachu. But thankfully, good guy Gary came to the rescue and helped Ash out. But because of Team Rocket, the Torch Runner got injured, so it's up to the main character, Ash, to light the torch for the opening ceremony. As predictable as this was, it was actually a cool moment, not gonna lie. And with that, the Johto League Silver Conference can finally begin. All in all, it was a pretty good episode, so its rating is also a 7 out of 10. Episode 3. Love, Pokemon Style. Now that the semi-final tournament has begun, Ash's next opponents have been revealed, the first of them being Macy. What's hilarious about this episode is that Macy ends up falling in love with Ash after he saves her life and rescues her Vulpix from Team Rocket. And I mean, I don't blame her. Serena who? Misty who? Make way, guys, cause have I got a shipping for you. Fire shipping. Jealous, Misty? I know you are. Anyways, Macy's actually a fire type trainer, so Ash decides to bring Kingler for his match against her. But then it gets taken out by a bunch of Voltorbs. Talk about being at the wrong place at the wrong time. Luckily, Squirtle is back, which is when this episode really starts to shine. Ash's battle with Macy was actually really good. He was totally prepared for Macy. And even when she tries to surprise him by whipping out an Electabuzz, he's totally unbothered by it, cause he brought Phanpy just for that. Macy actually ended up getting the advantage though, which leaves Ash down to Squirtle. But now we really get to see the results of his training with the Squirtle squad, cause he takes out Electabuzz and Quailava, which in turn ends up winning Ash the match. Squirtle was honestly the star of this episode. It was great to see it return and be in the best battling shape it's ever been. Because of that, this episode's rating is an 8 out of 10. Episode 4. Tie 1 on. Now it's time for Bulbasaur's epic return. Well, it isn't really that epic cause he's just kinda there chilling like he never left. But it was still cool to see him back though. A cool moment is when Bulbasaur and Squirtle run into trouble with Jackson's Meganium and the Azumarill. It was hilarious to see Squirtle get all serious and put on his thug glasses to show that he ain't no punk. This moment is actually pretty important because it sets up the rivalry between Bulbasaur and Meganium, which in turn makes their battle in the final match all the more better. Now Jackson didn't seem like much of a threat in the beginning, seeing as how he lost against Macy in the goofiest way. But surprisingly, he's pretty good. His Shiny Magneton, yes, Shiny Magneton, takes out Pikachu and Cyndaquil, so Ash is down to Bulbasaur. Luckily, he's able to take it out, which means Meganium is left. This final battle was actually really intense. Bulbasaur was at a disadvantage since it was facing off against a fully evolved starter, but it still takes hits like a champ and dishes him out as well. I loved the final Solar Beam clash to end the battle. It was pretty epic. In the end, it turns out being a tie. Gee, didn't see that coming. But since Ash has the most points, he moves on to the victory tournament, and his first opponent is none other than Gary. Man, what an ending. This episode's rating is a 9 out of 10. Episode 5. The Ties That Bind. Alright, it's time for the long-awaited final battle between Ash and Gary. But before we get started, how about we take up some time to give Ash and Gary some backstory on their rivalry? I mean, sure, we already have 5 seasons of the series as backstory, but still, we need something that'll add more emotional weight to this battle. So here's a rusty Pokeball. Yeah, apparently Ash has had this all along as a good luck charm. 5 seasons. And now we're finding out about this. Okay, so it turns out Ash and Gary fought over this Pokeball when they first started their journey. Wait, hold up. Yeah, I just rewatched the first episode and this never happened. The problem with this episode is that, okay, I get it, you want to add more tension to Ash and Gary's battle, but we already knew they had a major rivalry. Plus, the motivator they wanted to use is a rusty Pokeball? First of all, it completely contradicts the first episode, and secondly, we have an even better motivator they could have used. Ash and Gary's first battle where Ash ended up losing. This honestly felt like a waste of time when we could have gotten started with the battle. Yeah, it's cool that we got Charizard back, and yeah, the battle seems really intense from the beginning, but we only got like 4 minutes of it because of the forced backstory. Because of that, this episode's rating is a 6 out of 10. Episode 6. Can't Beat the Heat. Okay, now we can really focus on the battle between Ash and Gary. And man, was this a great one. Obviously, we know that Ash wants to beat Gary, but you can tell how serious this is thanks to his team. For starters, he's not using Pikachu. That's a big deal cause it's his go-to Pokemon. Ash usually battles with speed, but this time, his team is all about power. He wants to make sure that when he attacks, they'll hit hard and knock down Gary's team fast. And we see this thanks to some awesome wins that Ash gets with Snorlax. Unfortunately, Gary isn't a pushover and pretty much wipes down most of Ash's team until he's down to Charizard. But this is where everyone's favorite moment comes in, when Charizard proceeds to mow down the rest of Gary's team like nothing. The conclusion between Charizard and Blastoise was an epic one. Very fitting that the final match is between the mascots of Pokemon Red and Blue. So basically what the battle is telling me is that Pokemon Red is better, which I already knew, but it's good to get some confirmation. Anyways, this was such a satisfying win for Ash that really gives a solid conclusion to his rivalry with Gary. And to show Ash that he's totally fine with the loss, Gary gives him half of the rusty Pokeball. Okay, alright. Why did we have to bring that up? The episode was doing so well without it. Other than that teeny moment, it was honestly a perfect episode. It gets a 10 out of 10. Episode 7. Playing with Fire. It's time for the next battle, Ash versus Harrison. What makes this matchup unique is that Harrison's from the Hoenn region, so he has some Pokemon that Ash has never battled against before. For example, he leads off with Kecleon, who can camouflage with the surroundings. Pikachu has trouble at first, but luckily, it's able to take it out. Because of this win, Ash pretty much has the lead for the rest of the battle. Some great moments are Totodile taking out Sneasel and Bayleaf taking out a freaking Houndoom, but the MVP of this episode has to be Snorlax. It's hilarious because it comes out of sleep, which allows Harrison's Hypno to use Dream Eater, but Snorlax didn't like that one bit, so it proceeds to destroy it with a Hyper Beam. Not just that, but it was also epic to see it take out Harrison's Steelix with an Ice Punch uppercut followed by a Hyper Beam. You go, Snorlax! Too bad it gets taken out when its Hyper Beam gets countered. Wait, hold up, that doesn't make any sense. Anyways, the episode ends with what we've really been waiting for, Harrison's Blaziken. It has no problem taking out Ash's Bayleaf, showing that it really is a threat. Although it was facing off against a grass type, so was that really hard to do? Because of this, now Ash is down to his final Pokemon, Charizard. This episode was awesome, but what's gonna hold it back a little for me is that most of the wins were just 1 or 2 shots, so it gets an 8 out of 10. The final episode, Johto Photo Finish. Here we get the epic clash between the two fire starters, Charizard and Blaziken. In my opinion, this is the best battle the series had to offer at this point in time, even though Ash loses. It was super intense to see these fire types deliver devastating blows to each other. Sure, later battles are more fast paced and have more action in it, but back in the early 2000s, this was crazy. Now, like I already said before, Ash loses, but I still like the battle. Ash didn't go down like a chump this time. He gave it his all. Not like the freaking Indigo League. The rest of the episode is pretty much the resolution of the league. First we see Harrison getting defeated by John Dixon, who ends up winning the whole league. Who? Yeah, I thought the same thing. But more importantly, we get Gary, who announces his new dream of becoming a Pokemon researcher. It was a good conclusion to the Johto League in my opinion. Firstly, the battle was literally flames, and then we even get a tease for Ash's next journey in the Hoenn region. The only thing that kinda brings it down is the random stuff like the ghost that got stuck under a tree, and then Team Rocket hijinks at the end, so it gets a 7 out of 10. This league's overall rating is a 7.8 out of 10. It's pretty good.
Hey, that's pretty good.
First of all, it's clear that this league learned from the mistakes the Indigo League made. There wasn't nearly as much filler and Team Rocket stuff like the last time, which allowed us to focus on more league action, which is kinda the whole point. This was really the culmination of Ash's entire journey in the original series. We see every Pokemon he's caught up until this point make an appearance in some way, some more than others. The highlight is obviously Ash finally defeating Gary, which is the perfect climax for the league. It was dumb though how they tried to force the Pokeball backstory on us. It didn't have to be there at all, to be honest. Especially since it's never brought up before or after this point. And lastly, Harrison was the perfect league rival to defeat Ash. He faced Ash using Pokemon he's never seen before. And since Ash couldn't beat him, this will obviously get him more interested in the region that he came from. This was a great setup for Ash's next adventure, and I really wish that later leagues did the same. Although this wasn't perfect, it's way better than the Indigo League, that's for sure. It did a great job at wrapping up Ash's Johto and Kanto journey, as well as setting up the next series if you wanted to keep watching. And although there were still 3 episodes to go, in a way, the Johto League can be seen as the true ending of the original series.
Following up is the Hoenn League.
Episode 1. Like a Meowth to a Flame. It's time for Ash's 3rd Pokemon League competition. The whole Advanced series has been building up to this moment, so of course Ash is excited. But before we get to the actual league, we're introduced to Mr. Goodshow, the president of the Pokemon League, who now goes by Professor for some reason.
Isn't Professor Goodshow like the head of the league?
The gang even gets to learn of the Flame of Moltres, which is used during the opening ceremony of the league. Wait a minute, this is the same thing I said during the Indigo League! Okay, so this episode is alright, but it's honestly just the same thing we got the last 2 leagues. Team Rocket trying to steal the torch, and then the introduction of the new league rival, Harrison. Damn it, I meant Tyson. What's interesting about him is his edgelord of a Meowth that's making an obvious reference to Puss in Boots. This Meowth is pretty powerful, and even develops a rivalry with Team Rocket's Meowth, so that was cool to see. Aside from Meowth, Tyson was also revealed to have a Metagross, so this episode was pretty good in setting him up as a powerful trainer. Sort of similar to that Harrison guy. Gee, it really makes you wonder how this league is gonna end. Sarcasm! Yeah, if it wasn't obvious, I wasn't too excited about this episode. It's not that it's bad, but we've seen most of this stuff before, so this episode's rating is a 5 out of 10. Episode 2. Saved by the Beldum. Here we get the reintroduction of Morrison, Ash's other Hoenn League rival. Unlike past League rivals, we actually met Morrison in an episode before the League, which is great. We don't have to spend any time getting to know him. But if you did miss his first appearance, all you need to know is that he's a big chungus and is really competitive with Ash. Now his first match was actually pretty difficult because his Beldum only knows one move, which is Takedown. But in the end, it ends up evolving into a Metang and wins him the match, which was pretty cool. This actually inspires Ash to do the same in his first match and try to win by using one move as well. It wasn't really necessary considering Pikachu has a full moveset unlike Beldum who only knows one move, but congrats Ash, you damn show off. Now even though the focus of this episode was on Morrison and his Beldum, the ones who really steal the spotlight for me are Tyson and his Meowth. We get to see some more of its rivalry with Team Rocket's Meowth and even get to see it take down a Persian in its first match. Even though it won the match, it was still pretty bloodthirsty. If Tyson hadn't returned it, that Persian would have literally been killed. Apparently, it got its butt kicked by a Persian that left it borderline crippled. That's why it wears boots and has a hate for Persians. This was an interesting backstory and really helped boost an already solid episode. So this episode's rating is a 7 out of 10. Episode 3. From Brags to Riches. This episode reveals that the qualifying round consists of double battles, cause you know, that's the whole gimmick of Generation 3. We get to see Morrison's battle first. It's his Growlithe and Gligar versus his opponents Machamp and Marowak. The biggest problem for Morrison was that damn Machamp, but after a little bit of struggling, his Gligar is able to take it down with a guillotine. But then his opponent takes revenge by getting Growlithe whacked in the head. So now it's a one-on-one battle. It doesn't look too good for Morrison's Gligar, but it does the unthinkable by commanding it to charge head-on, completely tanking a Bone Club from Marowak. This was done so that Gligar can get close enough to land a powerful Iron Tail and win the match. That was super risky, but an awesome payoff. Great battle, but now it's time for Ash's battle. I didn't like it. First of all, Torkoal lost to Atropius. How? Oops, my bad, it was a tie. Point is, Torkoal should have won and it didn't. So that leaves Corphish versus Swalot. It was tough cause Swalot kept tanking everything and also had Shockwave, which is super effective on Corphish. But Ash wins by making Corphish charge at Swalot, tanking a Shockwave even though it did a lot of damage before, which makes no sense but okay, and finishing it off by using a Bubble Beam in its mouth. Pretty clever, but this is literally the same strategy Morrison used to win, recklessly charging forward for a close range attack. I know they're competitive rivals and all, but now it just feels like Ash is copying Morrison, and it's getting old really quick. This episode's rating is a 6 out of 10. Episode 4. Shocks and Bonds. This episode was a great one. It starts out with Ash battling some dude called Clark, the Conductor. Ash sends out Glalie and Grovyle, a pretty good combination, until you realize Clark sends out a Quilava and a freaking Charizard. Anyways, throwing game logics aside, Ash actually does well considering the clear disadvantage. I like the strategy he uses by making Glalie defend itself by creating ice pillars. Clark uses these pillars to his advantage though by hitting Glalie and making him bounce off like a pinball. But of course, Ash is able to turn it around by using the momentum of the bouncing to land a powerful headbutt to win the match. Pokemon Pinball for the win! The next big moment in the episode is when the victory tournament finally begins. We get an awesome cameo moment of Ash's friends watching him on TV again. We get to see Ash's mom, Mr. Mime who's randomly sick for some reason, Misty, Professor Oak, and... who? Now Ash is facing off against Katie, who gives him a good run for his money. She's shown to be very smart and calculative by the way she switches into her Pokemon that have a clear advantage over Ash's. This causes him to lose both Torkoal and Pikachu right off the bat. Torkoal isn't that much of a surprise, but Pikachu? That's a big deal. The biggest moment, however, is when Katie sends out her Misdreavus to purposely take damage so that it can use Destiny Bond to take Ash's Glalie down with it. That's a pretty crazy strategy. Because of this, half of Ash's team is already down for the count. This was a great cliffhanger and makes you wonder how Ash will turn it around. This episode's rating is an 8 out of 10. Episode 5. A Judgment Brawl. The episode barely starts, and we already see a good battle between Ash's Corphish and Katie's Golduck. Corphish gets hit by a confusion, which causes it to be confused. Duh. But even though it might seem bad, Corphish ends up using random attacks that manage to connect and throw Katie off guard, eventually causing her Golduck to lose. This really reminded me of the drunken kung fu fighting style. It was great and hilarious. Then, Ash is really able to turn the match around with his Swellow. It quickly gets rid of Katie's next two Pokemon. I gotta say though, the battle between Swellow and Scizor was pretty cool. It was truly a battle of speed and skill. Katie's final Pokemon, Walrein, was able to get Ash down to his final Pokemon, Grovyle. It was difficult because of its Ice-type attacks and the ability to hide underwater, but leave it to Ash to find a crazy way to turn things around. He makes Grovyle use Leaf Blade on the water, causing Walrein to pop out, and when it tries to counter with Ice Beam, it freezes the battlefield so now it can't hide underwater anymore. After a tough close-range battle, Grovyle was able to win. Now that was awesome. Later on in the episode, Ash's next opponent is revealed to be Morrison. This causes Morrison to get depressed because he doesn't want to battle a close friend, so when it's time for their match, Morrison isn't battling like he normally does. The episode ends with Morrison struggling to send out his next Pokemon, which might lead to a disqualification. This was another great episode and a pretty interesting cliffhanger as well. Its rating is an 8 out of 10. Episode 6. Choose it or lose it. So does Morrison finally make a decision? Just as he's about to be disqualified, Ash yells at him and he finally chooses a Pokemon to face off against Corphish, the Fire-type Growlithe. Now after Growlithe is defeated, cause duh, Ash finally puts Morrison in his place and basically tells him to get his shit together and battle for real. Then Morrison puts on his big boy pants and after letting out a huge battle cry, he's ready to battle for real. Thanks to that, we get an intense battle between Swampert and Corphish that ends in a draw. Well, that was unexpected. Or should I say, unexpected? Cause you know, Onix is the pre-evolution of Steelix, which is the Pokemon Morrison uses to body Ash's team and catch up. Anyway, Steelix is finally taken down by Grovyle in an awesome way. It uses Leaf Blade to cut through Steelix's Dragon Breath and land a direct hit. That was cool. The next cool moment is the air battle between Swellow and Gligar that ends in a tie. That's 2 in 1 battle. The final match is Metang vs Glalie. This was definitely intense. It's not that it's an epic rival battle conclusion or anything, but it's just that it's kinda scary to see how fast Morrison was able to catch up, leaving Ash's fate to freaking Glalie of all Pokemon. But luckily, Glalie is able to get a win by landing a spinning headbutt to knock out Metang. That was a close one. Now of course, when one rival is defeated, Ash has to take on the next one. So now it's Ash versus Tyson. The episode ends with a collision between Glalie's Ice Beam and Sceptile's Solar Beam. Not bad. After Morrison's shaky start, the episode really began to pick up and gave us an awesome battle. So this episode's rating is a 9 out of 10. The final episode. At the end of the fray. Right off the bat, both Pokemon are unable to battle. Dang. This is going to be an interesting match. It seemed pretty even until Tyson sends out his Hariyama. This Pokemon did a good job of tenderizing Ash's team, but the real star of the show was Ash's Swellow. It was able to take down Hariyama as well as Donphan. My favorite moment is when Swellow was able to stop Donphan's rollout and then toss it from the air. The next big threat of Tyson's team was his Metagross. This Pokemon got Ash all the way down to his last Pokemon, Pikachu. But before that, Ash was at least able to think of a way to defeat it. By aiming at one specific point, Ash was able to weaken Metagross enough to get Pikachu to finish the job. This was really good and it gave Pikachu a chance to finally shine. You know, since it pretty much sucked during this league. The final match was between Ash's Pikachu and Tyson's way too overhyped Puss in Boots.
Hey look, a little cut.
This battle was interesting because Pikachu and Meowth share 2 of the same moves, Thunderbolt and Iron Tail. Because of this, we got a lot of moments with these attacks clashing with each other. Another thing to know about this final match is the fact that Team Rocket's Meowth was cheering for Tyson's Meowth. To be honest, it was starting to get a little annoying with him making a damn comment after every attack. Like, shut up dude, we get it. You're a Meowth, he's a Meowth. The battle ends with both Pikachu and Meowth hitting each other with an Iron Tail. They both struggle to get up, but in the end, Pikachu stays down. All in all, this episode was pretty good, but the final match brings it down for me. Seeing Pikachu lose to a Meowth just felt kinda dumb. I don't care how much the anime wanted to hype it up. Losing to Tyson's Meowth is a disgrace and should never be brought up again. This episode's rating is a 7 out of 10. This league's overall rating is a 7.1 out of 10. Pretty good, but not better than Johto. It had a not so great start because it was basically copying the last two league intros, but by the time we get to the victory tournament, it really makes up for it. The rivalry between Ash and Morrison was great. It was interesting to see how Morrison had to deal with facing off against a close friend. This was great because it's something you don't normally see from battles. Tyson was another great part of the league. I was never upset that he beat Ash because he has a team of fully evolved beasts, while Ash has, you know, this. I even thought it was a good idea to make him win the whole league. Definitely makes Ash losing a lot better since he lost to the best trainer there, so it's not that bad when you think about it. I did have a problem with Pikachu losing to Tyson's Meowth though. Pikachu was constantly beating a Meowth but couldn't beat one when it mattered the most? Come on, man. That win really just felt like a victory for Team Rocket since their Meowth was cheering for Tyson's the whole time. And you know how I feel about Team Rocket. By the way, I want to give a quick shout out to Ash's Grovyle, Swellow, and Glalie. They really put in some work in this league. As for Pikachu, you really didn't do much this time besides beat Tyson's Metagross. Sorry. At least you redeem yourself in the next league, buddy. So I'm looking forward to that one.
And now, although not technically a league, let's review the Battle Frontier.
Episode 1. The Symbol Life. It's time for Ash's first Battle Frontier challenge, and it's against the factory head, Noland. The rule of this factory is that Ash chooses whichever Pokemon he faces. This should make things pretty easy, right? Except he decides to face Articuno. My god, are you pushing your luck here, fam. Luckily, the boy Charizard returned from the Charcific Valley to help out. Seeing Ash and Charizard reconnect was awesome, and this episode really shows how much stronger it's gotten since the Johto League. I mean, the boy is whipping out new moves and everything. Surprisingly, he actually held his own against Articuno for a bit. But this is a legendary after all, so it isn't a cakewalk for too long. Although Ash had a strong start, for most of the battle, Noland is actually one step ahead of Ash, and it did not help that Articuno knew how to use Water Pulse. Honestly, this match just felt like an uphill battle for Ash to climb, with him trying to find a way out of every situation he gets outsmarted in. One of my favorite moments is when it's revealed that Charizard learned Overheat, and it's saved for the last minute to help thaw the ice that was slowing Charizard down. That moment was epic, not gonna lie. Even though it missed, but we won't talk about that. And although this match was an uphill battle like I said, in the end, Charizard does manage to land its signature Seismic Toss. This win was so satisfying, cause not only does it feel well deserved, but it's also against a freaking legendary. Ash's first win against one in the series. It almost feels like this episode was made to redeem Charizard for its loss against Blaziken back in Johto. They even kinda do that similar thing where both Pokemon are knocked down and then they have to struggle to get back up, but this time Charizard takes the win. This was honestly his best battle in the entire anime. You go, Charizard. Oh yeah, and congrats to Ash on your first symbol as well. This episode's rating is a 10 out of 10. What a way to start off. Episode 2. Wheel of Frontier. Ash and the gang are now at the battle arena for the second Battle Frontier challenge against Greta. An interesting gimmick they have here is to spin a wheel, hence the episode title, to decide how many Pokemon they use, and Ash spins a 2-on-2. He leads with his Grovyle, whose awesome speedy movements are really gonna come in handy. Oh, it lost. Okay, but it's all good, cause Ash has a secret weapon up his sleeve, the return of his Snorlax. If you're a Snorlax fan like me, you're gonna love this episode, cause he really is the MVP here. Not only does he take out 2 of Greta's Pokemon on his own, even at a disadvantage, but this is also the infamous episode where he uses 6 moves in one battle. Now to be fair, this was back before the anime stuck with 4 moves like in the games, but hey, I ain't complaining cause it's awesome to see Snorlax wreck face. Honestly, he shouldn't have won considering he went up against 2 Battle Frontier level fighting types, but he still manages to hang in there. Rest definitely came in handy here. All in all, it was a good episode. Might not have been as epic as the first episode, but it's pretty hard to top a legendary battle, so that's understandable. My only real complaint is Team Rocket just kinda being exposed mid-battle only to be blasted off 5 seconds later. It kinda messed with the pacing just a bit, but what else is new with these guys? This episode's rating is a 7 out of 10. Episode 3. Tactics Theatrics. So it seems like the news of Ash's Battle Frontier conquest is spreading like crazy, cause now the dude's got a bunch of publicity and recognition. It's about time somebody noticed our boy's achievements. Psych, they only care about him cause he's facing Tucker, the real superstar. Now I don't know about you, but I really love the Battle Dome. This Frontier match just seemed way more grander thanks to the interview, the epic intros, and even the huge ass audience watching. It kinda feels like a league battle and even gives off similar vibes to the World Championship match of Lance vs Leon. God, I really hope they give Ash that same kind of intro when he competes at Worlds. But anyways, aesthetic and atmosphere aside, this was a really good battle. Tucker not only specializes in double battles, but he's also all about insane battle tactics. It really made things challenging for Ash, cause every time he tries anything, it was just countered by Tucker, who's prepared for almost everything. Ash tries to gain a speedy advantage with Swellow's quick attack? Too bad, cause Arcanine has extreme speed. Ash tries to use Corefish's advantage against Arcanine? Well, here comes Swampert with Protect. It was cool to see Ash actually think and come up with these good choices that should give him an advantage, but damn was Tucker giving him a hard time. And not only was Tucker overpowering Ash, but he's also doing so by giving the audience a good show. It's very much like a contest battle, which is something that May points out. It honestly seemed like Ash was gonna lose, but he finds a way to win by covering the battlefield in a thick coat of steam to mess with Tucker's insane tactics. Kinda reminds me of his battle with Gary in the Silver Conference. This was really cool, seeing Ash get the upper hand by outsmarting the strategy master basically. It was such a great win, and having the roar of the crowd cheer for Ash in the background just made it a lot more satisfying. This episode was really solid, and it's on par with a lot of awesome League episodes. So its rating is a 9 out of 10. Episode 4. Queen of the Serpentine. This episode has Ash take on the Battle Pike's Frontier Brain, Lucy. Wait, that's not... Okay, yeah, this is the real Lucy. Get the fuck out of here, Team Rocket. Okay, now for the real Frontier match. So this episode was alright, I guess. It starts out with the whole Team Rocket crap, so it kinda takes up a bit of the episode. And then the Frontier battle with Lucy is pretty basic. Every other Frontier Brain up until this point has been able to stand out in their own way, but there wasn't really much to Lucy or even her battle style. Her thing is just that she uses a stronger Survivor than Jessie. Oh yeah, and her crush on Brock, but more on that later. I will say though, it was pretty cool to see how Ash's Donphan takes the win by using Survivor's Flamethrower to power up Rollout. That was so damn cool. But after that, she sends out her Milotic while Ash uses Pikachu. This is literally the same final matchup when Ash went up against Juan in Hoenn. So this didn't feel all that special anymore, especially since the way Ash won against Juan's Milotic was way cooler. The way Ash wins here is by making Pikachu use Thunderbolt on itself, which apparently let it cut through Milotic's Twister or something like that. I don't know. I mean, Ash is known for his unpredictable battle style, but this was just a little too complicated and I still don't 100% understand how it works. And to top off such a mediocre episode, we've got Lucy's annoying ass sister who will just not shut the heck up. My god, who created this character? Honestly, what made the episode for me was the whole Brock and Lucy dynamic. The fact that our main man Brock finally found a woman that was interested in him felt so good. Too bad he had a bunch of cockblockers like Lucy's sister and... Max. This episode's rating is a 4 out of 10. Episode 5. Kaboom with a View. The 5th battle facility is at the Battle Palace against Spencer, and since this man is all about being one with nature, the battlefield is the entire jungle. This was cool because it adds a unique spin to the match. Watching this battle was a lot of fun because we got to see Ash and Spencer run around in the jungle with their Pokemon. It really makes the battle a lot more dynamic. Each matchup felt very different because they all took place in slightly different environments. Even the weather changes during the battle, which really turns the tide in some situations. Like when Venusaur uses the sun to decimate Heracross with the solar beam, or when the clouds cover up the sun to save Ash from another decimation. I really like that. This battle was all about adapting to the environment and nature, which is something you really don't have to worry about when you're in an indoor battlefield. So this was a nice twist. The MVP of the episode has to be Ash's Sceptile. It's his first real battle after evolving, and it kicks some serious ass. Its fast-paced matchup against Shiftry was a great way to start, and its finisher with Claydol was also a great way to close it out. And when it learned Solar Beam at the very end to take it out, my god was it cool. It was the perfect payback for what Spencer did to Ash's Heracross. And in the end, Ash walks away with his 5th Frontier symbol. This episode's rating is an 8 out of 10. Episode 6. Talking a Good Game. This is the episode where Ash takes on the Battle Tower, and what's interesting about this battle is that Ash actually befriends Annabelle before he even knew she was the Frontier Brain, or even knew she was a girl. Nice one. This makes the battle a lot more interesting, cause now he's facing a friend. It's a bit more personal. Now, although the battle doesn't begin till like halfway through the episode, it's actually not a bad thing. This is cause the first half does a good job of setting up Annabelle as a friend and as a huge threat as well. She's revealed to have the ability to understand what Pokemon are feeling, which sounds very familiar, but I can't put my finger on why. Anyways, this is important because it allows Annabelle to command her Pokemon telepathically, which makes Ash's battle against her way more of a challenge. Ash was getting destroyed, plain and simple. We don't even get to enjoy the comeback of his Tauros because it gets wrecked pretty quickly. And even though Ash finally got rid of that darn Alakazam with Pikachu, she whips out her Metagross right after. Yeah, rip Pikachu. All in all, this was a good first attempt episode for Ash. He was kinda breezing through the battle frontier up until this point, so it was about time he lost one. And this episode did a good job of building up why the Battle Tower is so challenging. If it were up to me, I'd shorten Team Rocket's time a bit and maybe get a bit more of a longer battle, but I get that all that stuff before the battle was necessary to build up Annabelle. So this episode's rating is a 7 out of 10. Episode 7. Second time's the charm. This one is all about the rematch against Annabelle. Now, aside from getting the first half filled with ability shipping, we actually get to see Ash training for his rematch as well. I like the way it was handled, and it's very different from the typical Ash Ketchum training we've seen before. He didn't really focus on anything too intense or vigorous, but more on strengthening the relationship with his Pokemon to be as connected with them as Annabelle. And what do you know, it actually works, especially when it came down to Corphish versus Alakazam. He doesn't really reach Annabelle levels of connection with his Pokemon, but you can tell that at least this time around, he's way more in sync with them. And that's what really gives him the edge this time. And you gotta love the big brain play Ash makes by returning Corphish and immediately sending it out again just to remove his confusion. I always thought that was cool. Probably the weakest link for Ash was his Tauros, but even still, it was able to go toe-to-toe with Metagross, leading to a double knockout. If you can at least tie with the Pseudo, then you're pretty good. And then that leaves us with the finale of Pikachu vs Espeon, which I'll admit wasn't as hype as the other matchups because of how little screen time Espeon got. But still, it was a pretty good speed battle. My favorite part would have to be when Pikachu makes the lights go out. This was a huge moment because it was able to throw off Annabelle for a bit. This is just what Ash needed to take the win. This was pretty good. I like how the training in the beginning of the episode really paid off and made the battle a lot better. Usually additions like these negatively affect an episode because they take up way too much time that could have been used for a battle, but for the purpose of this episode, it actually works. Nothing felt like a waste. Plus, it just provided wholesome moments in general, so I'm cool with that. This episode's rating is an 8 out of 10. Episode 8. Battling the Enemy Within. It's time for Ash's final frontier battle at the Battle Pyramid. Oh, never mind. It's ruin time. So as a kid, I remember not liking this episode. But now as an adult, I still don't like this episode. So long story short, this was Pokelantis. No! These are the ruins that keep the spirit of the king of Pokelantis. He originally created this Pokeball to trap Ho-Oh, so Ash tries to release it to face it in a battle. This is my first problem with the episode. Ash is way too cocky and arrogant in this episode for no reason. Actually, that's a lie. He does have a reason. It's this guy, but I'll get to him soon. He's so sure that he can defeat Ho-Oh because he has 6 frontier symbols that he runs deeper into the ruins even though his friends and Brandon advise against it. Because of this, he ends up getting possessed by the king of Pokelantis who was inside of the Pokeball instead of Ho-Oh, for some reason. So the only way to save him is by having a battle. Yup, a frontier battle is wasted because they wanted to have Ash be possessed and shit. I get the whole point of the episode was to teach Ash a lesson, but did it have to waste his battle with Brandon? Because at the end of the battle, Ash is all like, give me another chance, I want an official battle. And that makes sense. But Brandon is all like, no, I want to see some ruins. And then he leaves. What the fuck? Not only is this frustrating, but Brandon kinda comes off as a dick. Not just there, but like in all of his interactions with Ash. He's kinda mean by constantly calling him arrogant and a foolish kid. Alright, Iris' dad, calm down. Honestly, he's kinda the reason all of this happened, cause he provoked Ash by trying to put him down when they first met. We did get a cool moment at the end where we actually get to see Ho-Oh and it inspires Ash to do better, but it won't save this episode. If you want to make Ash lose to Brandon, that's fine, I totally get it. He's supposed to be the strongest Frontier Brain, and he even uses a Regirock. But having him lose as the King of Pokelantis was just dumb and unnecessary. His first loss against Brandon could have been a lot better and meaningful. This episode's rating is a 2 out of 10. Episode 9. Overjoyed. After 8 episodes, Ash and the gang return to the battle pyramid, but Brandon's not here, so instead of battling the final Frontier Brain, Ash is battling against this Nurse Joy. Okay, I know what you're thinking. Although it's kind of annoying that Ash isn't battling Brandon right away, the Nurse Joy stuff wasn't too bad. She's very different from your typical Joy because she's a huge battle and contest fan. I always thought it was cool that she recognized Ash from the Hoenn League and May from the Grand Festival. The anime needs more moments of recognition like this. Now, even though Ash is battling a Nurse Joy, she's actually no joke and beats Ash. This battle was supposed to show Ash that defeating Brandon won't be easy. If you're having trouble defeating a Nurse Joy, then how the hell are you supposed to beat the toughest Frontier Brain? Ash was trying to win with brute force, but now he's gotta think of a different way to win. And since Brandon tells him he's gonna use Registeel, he can actually plan ahead and get the win. He really seems prepared for this, and even calls Professor Oak to bring back an old friend. Ooh, I wonder who it is. You're hyping this up quite a bit, so it's gotta be someone good. Is it Charizard again? Maybe Heracross? Yeah! Seriously? I mean, he has the type advantage, but come on. Torkoal sucks. Alright, all joking aside, even though Torkoal does suck, this was probably his best battle ever, even though it lost. It performed a lot better than I thought it would though. Anyways, this loss is supposed to show Ash that even type advantage won't be enough to defeat Brandon. He's really got to be connected with his Pokemon if he truly wants to win. This loss was handled way better than the first, which I appreciate. I like that Brandon comes off as a mentor this time, you know, instead of a bitchy boomer like the last episode. Oh wait, he's leaving again? Fuck! This episode's rating is a 6 out of 10. Episode 10. Gathering the Gang of 4. We all know this episode, so I'm just gonna cut right to the chase. It's the return of Ash's Cancel starters, and now he's back to his original 4 Pokemon, if you're not counting Butterfree, or Pidgeot. This was not only to tickle our nostalgia bone, but it kinda makes sense in the context of the story. Brandon tells Ash that the connection between trainer and Pokemon is important, and what better Pokemon to be the most connected with than his original team? This was awesome. I loved seeing Ash reconnect with his Pokemon, and it's so cool to see them look back at the great moments they shared. This episode really shows that he has a special place in his heart for his first group of Pokemon. It's so heartwarming. Even when Team Rocket shows up, it isn't even that bad because it's all about Ash working together with his starters to save Pikachu. Brandon actually sees this and decides he wants their battle to be a 4-on-4 so he can see just what Ash can do with these guys. I really like that. Good thing he didn't use all the Regis though, cause my god, would that have been a massacre. Ash leads off with the boy Charizard, which you think would give him the upper hand, but he actually has quite a hard time against Dusclops. And just when things started going Ash's way, he got caught up in the moment and tried to finish it off with Charizard's signature Seismic Toss, when it doesn't affect Dusclops. Yeah, that definitely cost him. Now as a kid, I used to hate that Charizard lost here, but actually this is such a smart thing. Making Big Bad Charizard lose shows just how strong Brandon is, if it wasn't obvious already. Also, the fact that he lost first means that Ash can't rely on him to win like he usually does. He's gotta prove he can win without it, which makes the next episode all the more intense. Plus, Charizard already had its moment to shine when it beat Articuno. Now it's time for the others to shine. This episode was really good, but I do have one complaint though. Why was the animation so shit? This episode's rating is an 8 out of 10. The final episode. Pace, the final frontier. This is it, Ash's final chance to master the battle frontier, and without Charizard, it's gonna be a challenge. But somehow, he actually does it. Well, not somehow, cause he wins thanks to the strong bond he has with his Pokemon. Take Bulbasaur for example, who took out the Dusclops that took out Almighty Char. He definitely had some trouble, but Ash was able to get through to Bulbasaur while it was confused to give it that push it needed to take the win. I really love these moments, where Ash is counting on his Pokemon and giving them a speech on why he believes in them. And that's what this battle was all about basically, Ash believing in his oldest friends. I also love how Ash was taking advantage of his team's strengths to get an edge. For example, using Squirtle's Hydro Pump to dodge since Ash knows that Squirtle likes to spin around when it uses that move. Just little details like that show that Ash really knows these guys. Also, I don't know if this is supposed to be an intentional reference, but the double solar beam knockout by Bulbasaur and Solrock kinda reminds me of Bulbasaur vs Meganium in the Johto League. That was pretty epic. But nothing will be more epic than the finale of Pikachu vs Regice. This thing was tough, and the fact that it kept freezing everything and also resting made it way more difficult. It seemed like everything was gonna be over for Ash, but it's his trust in Pikachu that allowed him to keep breaking through the ice and eventually defeat Regice. This was awesome because Ash was not only able to defeat his second legendary, but became champion of the Battle Frontier. And since he's become champion, he's given the option to become a Frontier Brain himself. But of course, as we all know, Ash turns it down because he wants to keep traveling. Now this was obviously because Diamond and Pearl were coming and they needed Ash for Sinnoh, but honestly, I respect this. It's very in line with Ash's character to keep on exploring to meet new Pokemon and trainers. This is the exact same reason why he leaves Alola after all. So yeah, in the end, this episode was filled with non-stop amazing action, gave shine to the rest of Ash's Kanto starters, and gave a pretty satisfying ending to his Battle Frontier run. So this episode's rating is a 10 out of 10. The Battle Frontier's overall rating is a 7.2 out of 10. It was really good. Honestly, it deserves higher and would have actually been higher if it wasn't for the mediocre Lucy episode and that horrible first meeting with Brandon. So let's not talk about those and actually focus on the good. Probably the biggest thing this arc's got going for it is how much of a step up it was from the Hoenn League. Most of these Frontier Brains were really tough, and even had their own unique gimmicks and battle styles just like in the games. This really was one of the hardest challenges for Ash, and the fact that he was able to get through them all is actually really impressive. Especially since the Battle Frontier had Ash facing off against some legendaries and even had him beat 2 of them. Sure, that ain't no biggie nowadays, but back then, this was huge. Now aside from the Frontier Brains, what really made the Battle Frontier arc is the fact that Ash brought back his old Kanto and Johto Pokemon as well. He really showed off his skills by assembling the teams he believed gave him the best advantage depending on the Frontier Brain. My favorite team he used, and probably all of yours, let's be honest, was his final one, where he brought back his original team. It was a nice way for Ash to go back to the basics without completely butchering his character. The more you look at it, the more you'll notice that the Battle Frontier arc just felt like a celebration of everything Ash has done up until this point. Sure, it might have been hella fanservice-y, but it was done in a way that makes sense and also strengthens Ash's character. I mean, this arc was pretty much the catalyst for the more strategy-based version of Ash we get in Sinnoh. Honestly, I hope that future seasons of the anime take inspiration from this. And since Ash is currently aiming to take on the Pokemon World Championships, who knows? We might get something like this again. But until then, if you haven't already, I highly suggest rewatching the Battle Frontier arc. It's definitely worth revisiting this vital part of Ash's Pokemon Master journey.
Next is the Sinnoh League.
Episode 1. An Old Family Blend. Alright, we all know this episode. It begins with Ash and the gang arriving on Lily of the Valley Island. Now I gotta say, right off the bat, it was truly a great way to start off the league. It didn't copy previous league formulas by spending the whole episode introducing a new rival, or reintroducing Mr. Good Show, or even making Ash light up the torch just cuz. We get something completely different. For this introductory episode, we get the return of many of Ash's Pokemon, and it's freaking awesome. But before we get to the good stuff, I do have one complaint. This episode is low-key the generic Team Rocket plot we've seen before. Team Rocket try to steal Ash's Pokemon, get blasted off, and then they're all scattered. So now it's up to Ash and the gang to find them all. You see? Generic. But at least it's with the nice twist of reuniting with some of Ash's older Pokemon. At first, they didn't show who Ash transferred over, so you really didn't know who you were gonna see. Except for Totodile, because he's the only one with a different Pokeball. The first batch was Corphish, Totodile, Snorlax, Bayleaf, and Cyndaquil. It was great to see these guys again. Then Team Rocket comes back, again, and tries to get Cyndaquil, but it evolves into Quailava. This was awesome and totally unexpected. The episode ends with the opening ceremony and Ash finding out that his first opponent is going to be Nando. Now, like I said, the basic Team Rocket stuff isn't all that great, but luckily the return of Ash's Pokemon really saves it for me. So this episode's rating is an 8 out of 10. Episode 2. League Unleashed. In this episode, the battles finally begin, and it's Ash versus Nando. What's great is that Nando is a character that was introduced in the beginning of the Diamond and Pearl series and became sort of a pseudo-rival for both Dawn and Ash, so it all came full circle. Now what sucks about this episode is that their first 2 Pokemon go down pretty quickly. Ash actually sends out his newly evolved Quailava, but then it cuts to Team Rocket and then skips over the battle. And then once we do get back to Quailava, it ends up being a quick double knockout. Great. Yeah, it wasn't looking too good for this episode. Luckily, we get the final matchup, and it's between Nando's Kricketune and Ash's Heracross, which is where I feel like the episode really begins. That's right, Heracross? That's right, Heracross makes a return, and he's here to kick some ass. Ash wasn't kidding when he said he wanted to see a head-to-head bug-type battle, cause that's exactly what we got. Like, whoever thought that bug types could have such an awesome battle? An awesome moment is when Heracross falls victim to Kricketune sleep and, well, falls asleep. But Ash saw this coming from Nando, so he taught his Heracross sleep talk and then strikes back with a powerful focus punch. There's also the epic finish with Heracross using Mega Horn to destroy the ground from Kricketune's feet to take the win. Freaking epic. Now, even though this was a great league start for Ash, they still had to rub it in your face that Paul is better than him by having him win his first match without losing a single Pokemon. There's also the fact that Barry mentions in this episode that there's a trainer in the league who uses our Darkrai. So there's definitely a lot of tough competition here, and I like it. This episode's rating is a 7 out of 10. Episode 3. Casting a Pall on Barry. This episode was pretty solid, to be honest. It starts off with Ash winning his second match with Snorlax's Pulverizing Pancake Z move. Wait, wrong generation. Sucks that we didn't get more Snorlax action, but it's fine because that's not the main focus of this episode. The real highlight was Barry versus Paul. Ever since Barry was introduced, we knew that he was a Paul fanboy, so this was finally Barry's chance to impress his senpai. And he got wasted. This battle was interesting because it's two of Ash's rivals going at it this time. It's funny though, cause Barry was all talk and saying things like him versus Paul was practically like the final match of the league or something, but Paul was pretty quick to put him in his place. Barry couldn't defeat a single Pokemon. You almost feel bad for the dude. His Skarmory got one-shot by Magmortar's Flamethrower, Hitmonlee held its own against Ursaring until it activated its Guts ability and got defeated, and Barry's final Pokemon, Empoleon, has to face off against Paul's Electivire. And I think you know how that went. One cool thing to note is the fact that Empoleon activates his Torrent ability, but it didn't really help against Paul. Like, at all. At the end of the battle, Barry acknowledges that he lost, but still says that he had a great battle, and Paul agrees, which shows that he's in a total douchebag. It's just to Ash. This episode's rating is an 8 out of 10. Episode 4. Working on a right move. So right off the bat, we see Ash doing some last minute training, and Infernape ends up learning Flare Blitz. It seems like the Pokemon Ash is going to use for his third round will be Infernape, Torterra, and Glalie. But Conway is spying in the background and has come up with a strategy to counter that team. Good thing Ash switches things up and sends out his Noctowl. Ha! Got him! Now this episode was an awesome one. From start to finish, it was non-stop action. Conway's a pretty interesting trainer with him having his own unique battle style. So this really made the match stand out compared to other league battles. For example, how Conway's Shuckle uses Power Trick to switch its attack and defense to give Ash some trouble. Even when Ash has the upper hand, Conway then takes the advantage again by using Trick Room, making his Dusknoir super speedy. Luckily for Ash, he had Gible. Gible was definitely the MVP of this match. It was awesome as heck when it catches Shuckle's Gyro Ball in its mouth and then destroys it with its newly mastered Draco Meteor. I can't think of a better moment to perfect a move. On top of that, it does the same thing again by biting Dusknoir's Shadow Punch, blasting it with a Draco Meteor, and then the icing on the cake, smacking it dead in the face with a Dragon Pulse. What an awesome finish. The episode ends with the revelation that it's finally time for Ash to face Paul. This episode's rating is a 9 out of 10. Episode 5. Familiarity breeds strategy. Alright, the battle between Ash and Paul has officially started, so you know this episode was super hype. But what I like about this is that before we get to see it, we get a quick look back at what happens prior. Ash was doing some training with Gliscor that returned after training with the Air Battle Master, while Paul was talking to his brother Reggie. This then gives us a nice moment where they meet each other that really helps to build up to their battle. And as for the actual battle, it's intense right from the start. What I like about this episode is that Ash has the upper hand right off the bat. Very different from other battles that he's had with Paul where he always gets completely destroyed. So this really shows his growth. Like how he sends Infernape to face Aggron once Pikachu wasn't doing so well. Infernape literally wrecks Aggron's face and I love it. Now even when Paul tries to throw Ash off with Gastrodon's counter shield, Ash is able to make the switch into Buizel to knock it out with an Ice Aqua Jet Ice Punch combo. That was awesome. I gotta say though, seeing Paul use a counter shield really shows how he's changed and adapted Ash's battle style into his own. The episode ends with Drapion attacking Buizel and Reggie revealing that Paul losing his first 2 Pokemon was all a part of his plan. So that doesn't sound good. By the way, are we just gonna ignore the fact that Reggie is totally talking to himself? Anyways, this was a solid start to an epic rival battle conclusion. So this episode's rating is an 8 out of 10. Episode 6. A real rival rouser. Now for the first part of this match, Ash had the upper hand, but for this episode, it was all about Paul. The biggest problem was that damn Drapion. Right off the bat, it takes out 3 of Ash's Pokemon in a row, and that's all thanks to its annoying toxic spikes that kept hurting everybody. Even when Ash tries to counter with Staraptor, Drapion just grabs it and throws it onto the freaking ground like a savage. Can we get some Fs in the chat, please? Seems like everything is going as Paul predicted, but that was his biggest mistake. Ash is the king of unpredictable battle styles, so of course he's gonna turn things around. He does so by making Infernape use an underground Flare Blitz to get rid of the toxic spikes for good. And with that out of the way, Ash has no problem taking out Ninjask and Frostlass. Things are finally going Ash's way again, and the episode ends with Gliscor going up against that stupid Drapion and dodging its pin missiles like a boss. This episode's rating is a 9 out of 10. Episode 7. Battling a Thaw in Relations. This is it, the final part of this 3-part rival conclusion, and it was epic. Like I said, Drapion is using Pin Missile, and Gliscor is dodging them all like a boss. Crap, never mind, Thaw! At least it was able to take it out with a Fire Fang. Good on ya, Gliscor, and good riddance, you stupid Drapion. Paul's final Pokemon was Electivire, and although it had a disadvantage, it was able to use Thunder on the battlefield to hurt Gliscor and catch it with its 2 tails. So yeah, Gliscor is pretty much donezo. Next up is an intense battle between Electivire and Pikachu. It was very reminiscent of Ash and Paul's first battle, which was an awesome throwback. Then Pikachu's taken out with Brick Break. Rest in spaghetti, never forgetty. And now it's time for the final matchup of Electivire versus Infernape. It was intense, fast-paced, and super hype. It looks like Infernape is about to lose, but then it's the moment we've all been waiting for. Infernape uses Blaze and goes Super Saiyan! Everybody loves this moment. It was truly epic. Watching this moment, you can't help but remember all the battles Ash has had and always losing to Paul. But now things have finally changed. Infernape, the Pokemon that Paul abandoned because he thought it was pathetic, was kicking Electivire's ass. It was truly poetic. And the battle ends with an epic collision between Flare Blitz and Thunder Punch. They cause a huge explosion. Then the dust clears. They stare each other down, and then Electivire takes the fall. Ash has finally defeated Paul. Yes! I love this moment. It was done so right and felt so well deserved. The icing on the cake is when Cynthia's explaining how their battle gave birth to a connection between the 2 of them. And you really feel this. This is not only the perfect ending to the rivalry between Ash and Paul, but a perfect League episode. This episode's rating is a 10 out of 10. Now on to Darkrai. The final episode. Semi-final Frontier. Oh boy, it's time for this episode. Here we have Ash in the semifinals facing off against Tobias, the Darkrai trainer. Now obviously, Ash gets wrecked pretty hard. I mean, it's a freaking Darkrai, so we kinda saw this coming a mile away. But it still sucks. It doesn't help that even after Darkrai is taken out, he uses a freaking Latios right after.
Oh, I'm coming. I'm done here. I fulfilled my purpose. I ain't need to see no more shit down here.
Like, what the heck? How strong is this guy? I will say though, the best moments of the episode have to be when Sceptile makes an epic return by taking out Darkrai, and then Pikachu battles with Latios. With Sceptile, it was awesome because things seemed hopeless for Ash, but then leave it to one of his ace Pokemon to get the job done. Definitely one of Ash's best moments despite the final outcome of the match. As for Pikachu's battle with Latios, it was super intense with Pikachu giving it its all. The Volt Tackle Iron Tail finish was super epic, and I love it, even if it ended in a tie. Now the conflicting part of this episode is that it has two moments that can easily be considered as one of the greatest in the entire anime, but Ash loses so badly here that it hurts. This honestly felt like a rushed way to finish the league and prevent Ash from winning, but I still gotta tip my hat to Pikachu and Sceptile's moments, so you can still get enjoyment from this episode. This episode's rating is a 7 out of 10. This league's overall rating is an 8.3 out of 10. The best so far. It just did so many things right. One of the most obvious being that Ash brought so many of his older Pokemon back. It was awesome to see him battle with a mix of old and new Pokemon. There was also the fact that they really did well in the rivals department. Not just having Barry and Paul present, but having minor rivals like Nando and Conway come back was great and made almost every battle Ash had important. There was only like one battle that got skipped. Now there's no question that the true highlight of the league was Ash's 3-part final battle with Paul. It was the perfect way to end their rivalry, and it was what the Diamond and Pearl series was building up to since the very beginning, so I'm so glad that they stuck the landing here. The biggest problem with the league though is Tobias. Like, this would have been a perfect league if they ended right after Paul, but no. Ash has to lose, so we're just gonna cram in this guy who uses legendary so he can finish the league already. That was so dumb. And yeah, it was cool to see Ash hold his own, barely, but it doesn't change the fact that this was such a rushed ending to an otherwise perfect league arc. But aside from that, this was still a great league. Of course, this is the climax of the Diamond and Pearl series, but in a way, it can also be seen as the climax for the entire anime series up until this point. Think about it. Ash brought back Pokemon from all his regional travels, defeated his greatest rival ever, and has made it the farthest he's ever been in a league before. In a way, this could have been a good ending for the entire anime if the writers wanted it to be. And the fact that he was even able to take out a couple legendaries shows that this league was taking Ash Ketchum in the right direction. What the fuck?
Okay, time for the Unova League, I guess.
Episode 1. Curtain up, Unova League. This episode was pretty good, believe it or not. It doesn't hold any punches and jumps right into the action, which is great. Unlike other leagues, all of Ash's rivals has appeared in the series before, so we don't have to waste much time reintroducing them. Even Virgil, who looks like he's gonna be the Harrison/Tyson of this league, got his intro episode right before the league. Now what I love about this episode is that we just don't get to see Ash's preliminary battle, but all of his rivals' battles as well. This reminded me of the Hoenn League. I love when they do this because it shows that the league is full of fierce battles. The rivals aren't just here to wait for their turn to face off Ash, they have their own goals as well. Now the big twist of this league is the fact that Ash is facing off against his main rival Trip in the first round. Damn, already? No epic 6-on-6? The tension here is kinda ruined because you know there's no way they'll make Ash lose in the first round, but I do appreciate what they were going for here. This one-on-one preliminary match is supposed to parallel Ash and Trip's first battle. You know the one, where Pikachu loses to Snivy. This was finally Ash's chance to redeem himself for that battle, and every other battle he's lost to him. So that makes for a really interesting and intense league start. This episode's rating is a 7 out of 10. Episode 2. Mission: Defeat your rival. After a pretty solid league start, this episode drops the freaking ball. The biggest problem is that it feels like 2 episodes crammed into one, so it's super rushed. The first half is Ash vs Trip, and the second is Cameron vs Bianca. Now Ash vs Trip, it sucked. The first episode had a great build up, but then in this one, it ends pretty quickly. How does Ash win? Oh, I know. Since regular attacks aren't good enough, let's just combine Electro Ball and Iron Tail. Really? That's what it took to win? I was expecting a little more strategy here, so this was pretty anticlimactic if you ask me. Especially since Pikachu was getting its ass handed to, only to have it win so quickly. Now after this, you'd think we get a nice moment where Trip finally admits to Ash that he's a good trainer, but nah. He's just like, I'll beat you next time, and then he leaves. Mind you, this is Ash's main Unova rival, and he's offed halfway through the episode. Really? 2 years of their rivalry for this? It wasn't satisfying, like, at all. As for Cameron vs Bianca, there really isn't much to say. Pretty basic, it's mostly used to show off how strong Cameron is by taking out one of Ash's rivals. When this rival versus rival plot point is done right, it's pretty cool. But this one is pretty rushed, so it's not really that memorable. This episode's rating is a 4 out of 10. Episode 3. Lost at the League. It starts out with Ash winning his second round match with Scraggy. Oh, we're not gonna see the whole thing? Cool, who cares about battles anyways? It's only the League after all. Sarcasm! After this, it's revealed that Ash will face Stefan in the third round, which sounds pretty good. But then the rest of the episode focuses on Axew getting lost. I am not kidding. 3 words. What the heck? The Pokemon League arcs are one of the most anticipated moments in the Pokemon anime. And what does Black and White do? Give us a full, legit filler episode during the Unova League. Who in their right mind in the anime staff thought this was a good idea? It's even more annoying because they just talked about how the last episode felt rushed. So was that because they wanted to make room for this? No! I'm not wasting any more time on this episode. I know it sucks, you know it sucks, let's just move on. This episode's rating is a 1 out of 10. Complete trash and a waste of my time. Episode 4. Strong strategy steals the show. Alright, finally we get a proper Unova League episode. This one showcases Ash versus Stefan, and I actually liked it. The battles at this point are 3-on-3, and the first matchup is Liepard versus Crocodile. It was surprisingly intense, which is a great way to start off the battle, and in the end, Crocodile takes the win. Awesome, I am hooked. Honestly, this episode was pretty great. I wasn't really disappointed by this episode, and I was generally entertained by the battle. I guess the weakest part would be Zebstrika versus Palpitoad. Ash clearly had the type advantage, but couldn't really take the win in that match. But his Palpitoad was always kinda lame, so what else is new? A really cool and intense battle was Sock versus Leavanny. Although it took the L by the end, it was still a really tough and close range battle, which I really love to see. But of course, I gotta give credit to the real MVP of this battle, Crocodile. Not only did it give us an awesome battle right from the start, but even when it was at a disadvantage against Sock, it whips out a freaking aerial ace to take the win of the battle. That was totally unexpected, which is why I love it. The episode ends with Ash moving to the quarterfinals, facing off against Cameron, who sends out his Hydreigon. Like I said, this was a proper League episode, and we deserved way more like this from the beginning. This episode's rating is an 8 out of 10. Episode 5. Cameron's Secret Weapon. Alright, now that Ash has made it to the Victory Tournament, it's full battle time. Cameron uses his secret weapon Hydreigon to try to knock out as much of Ash's team as possible, and he kinda did by taking out both Boldore and Oshawott. Now all the Hydreigon stuff was pretty good in the beginning, but afterwards it pretty much becomes the Pikachu and Pignite show once it's taken out. Most of the wins in this episode go down to type advantage, so Ash's next couple of wins are super quick and predictable. In fact, all of the tension from Hydreigon is completely thrown away at this point because Ash totally ends up getting a huge lead over Cameron, especially when you realize he only brought 5 Pokemon.
You won't be laughing at that soon.
Yes, Cameron brought 5 Pokemon to a 6-on-6 battle. Looks like it's gonna be an easy win for Ash, or so you think, because even though type advantage was the main way of winning in this episode, Ash's flying type on Pheasant couldn't beat Riolu. Jeez, this is why nobody likes you, you useless bird! And just when it couldn't get any worse, after a tough battle with Snivy, Riolu ends up evolving into Lucario. Well shit. All in all, this episode was good, I just didn't like how rushed some of the wins were. This episode's rating is a 6 out of 10. The final episode. A Unova League Evolution. Alright, I'm gonna be blunt with you. I didn't like this episode, and I'm sure a lot of you didn't either. But before that, I gotta give some credit to the battle though. Not Snivy versus Lucario cause she was taken out pretty easily, so that's kind of irrelevant. I mean Pikachu versus Lucario. Surprisingly, I actually really liked this battle. Although Pikachu lost, it went out like a goddamn champ. It was a pretty awesome battle, so I can't complain there. But now for what I will complain about. Although Pikachu went out in a good way, it's not enough to save this episode, cause Ash didn't. Cameron, this idiot, forgot to bring 6 Pokemon and still beats Ash? How? That's embarrassing. And again, who in the writing staff thought this was a good idea? Because of this, Cameron moves on to the semifinals, but then loses to Virgil, who ends up winning the whole league. Wait, hold up. What the heck was the point of introducing Virgil if Ash wasn't gonna face him in the first place? This dude was hyped up to have this awesome evolution team, but for what? What's the point if Ash was gonna lose to Cameron? And to add insult to injury, the episode ends with trying to replicate the Indigo League's iconic ending where Ash is at the stadium reminiscing about the league, but instead it's of the whole black and white anime. No, what the heck? You don't deserve to do that. This episode was insulting, honestly. Because of that, this episode's rating is a 3 out of 10. It was bad. This league's overall rating is a 4.8 out of 10. Obviously the worst out of all the leagues so far. Half the episodes were pretty decent, but the problem is that the other half is pretty bad. The biggest problem is that goddamn Axu filler. There really was no reason for that, and it was a waste of a league episode. We could have had an extra episode to get better closure between Ash and Trip, or even get a battle between Ash and Virgil. But no, we got an Axu episode. So dumb. But it can't take all the credit, because it's also pretty bad in the way that Ash lost. Ash went from having the best league ever and needing literally legendaries to take him out, to losing to this goof who brought 5 Pokemon to a full battle. Probably the worst league loss to date for Ash. Oh yeah, and don't forget about the wasted character Virgil. Honestly, this league just felt like a copy and paste of the Indigo League, but amplified. Ash's main rival is taken out early, a lot of filler, and Ash loses in the most embarrassing way. You know what? Now that I think about it, because Gen 5 was supposed to be like the new Gen 1, maybe this was the whole point. They weren't trying to outdo the Sinnoh League, but trying to replicate the Indigo League, as mediocre as it was. So in the end, if you look at it that way, the Unova League maybe isn't so bad after all. Nah, it's still shit.
Alright, time for the far more superior Kalos League.
Episode 1. A League of His Own. Alright, this intro episode had a lot to get through. Just like the Unova League, this league decides to say,
let's just jump into it.
And gets right into the action. A lot faster. It makes sense though, since we already know Ash's rivals, and there's no last minute league rivals this time. Thank God! The first match is Alon versus baby-ass Trevor. And this was supposed to be the main highlight since it's a freaking Mega Charizard X and Y battle, but Alon sweeps him pretty quickly. Damn, kind of disappointing that it ends so quickly, but who are we kidding, it's Alon. Now what I really found interesting in this episode is how they're handling Ash. They really want to hammer it down that Ash is super serious about winning this time. Unlike that joke of a Unova League. This hoodlum looking trainer didn't get 8 badges in time, so he's kinda jealous of Ash's confidence. He's so jealous that he actually challenges Ash to a battle literally as he's about to have his first league match just to prove that he belongs there. I really like this moment though, cause Ash puts him in his place like a badass and shows that he's here because he earned it and that he's going to win. Damn, he's really not playing this time around, huh? He even backs this up by declaring that he'll win the Kalos League and then one-shots his opponent with Ash Greninja. That was awesome. Unfortunately, the rest of the battle is kinda skipped over and the episode ends right there. Really? Yeah, that's what's gonna hold back the episode for me a bit. It had the potential of being one of the best league openers, but it tried to do too much right off the bat, which led to the whole episode feeling a bit rushed. So this episode's rating is a 7 out of 10. Episode 2. Valuable experience for all. Right off the bat, it starts off with Ash winning against Asteroid's Mega Absol and moving on to the semifinals. Wait, it's only episode 2 of the league and it jumps to the quarterfinals? What the heck is going on? So not only did this league skip a potential great battle with Asteroid, but it's pretty much near the end technically. Alright, aside from that revelation, this episode was actually good. It's another rival versus rival episode with Sawyer versus Tierno. This episode did a really great job of showing how smart Sawyer is in battle, which really hypes up his eventual battle with Ash. Now he tells him right before the match that he's gonna break Tierno's rhythm to win, and that's just what he did. His Aegislash was definitely one of the biggest players cause it uses King Shield to block Ludicolo's rain boosted moves. So all I had to do was set up a couple of swords dances and slice up that Ludicolo. But of course, Sawyer's real MVP was his Sceptile, who had no problem taking out Tierno's Blastoise. Even when it sets up last minute rain for Raichu's Thunder, Sawyer Mega Evolves Sceptile to take advantage of Lightning Rod, and the rest is history. Now Sawyer moves on to face Ash in the semifinals, and because it's gonna be a full battle, the episode ends with Ash's Goodra returning. Like I said, this episode was pretty good, but the huge league skip in the beginning of the episode is gonna cost it. It was slightly excusable in the first episode, but now it's pretty obvious that this league is starting to feel super rushed. This episode's rating is a 6 out of 10. Episode 3. Analysis versus Passion. Okay, now we've got a great episode on our hands. It starts off with Alon winning an intense battle that leads him into the finals. And when I say intense, I mean not really, cause apparently he won only using Metagross and Charizard. This was a great way of hyping him up even more than before. But first, Ash has to worry about Sawyer. Ash leads off with Hawlucha, who's wearing a brand new Luchador outfit made by Serena, so you know he's serious and ready to kick some ass. Well, shit. Yeah, this episode did a great job of showing that Sawyer ain't no chump. Not only has he analyzed Ash's battle style, but he's also adopted his unpredictability in ways that make it really difficult for Ash. For example, using the slow-moving Slacking to throw off Hawlucha, who's at its best with more active opponents, and using Clawwisser's Aqua Jet in the air to slow down Talonflame's aerial movements. Those are some big brain plays right there. Ash isn't totally done for though, as he finds ways to exploit some of Sawyer's weaknesses and slowly follow behind. But it's obvious that Sawyer had the upper hand in this episode. Then it ends with Sawyer's Aegislash cutting up the trees to stop Pikachu from hiding within them, so it'll be interesting to see how Ash turns things around. This episode's rating is an 8 out of 10. Episode 4. A riveting rivalry. This episode was jam-packed with action. Although Sawyer had the upper hand in the first part, Ash definitely made a comeback here. A great way of starting was having Pikachu defeat Aegislash. It does so by using Iron Tail on the ground to surround the battlefield with wood pieces. And after Aegislash cut them up a bit more, all it took was for one of those chunks to stop it from using King's Shield. This was an awesome strategy. I also really loved the epic dragon battle between Noivern and Salamence. Although it ended in a tie, it was super hyped to see them go all out. Then we got a tie between Goodra and Slurpuff. Although it seemed kind of annoying to have two ties in a row, it made sense since Goodra was at a disadvantage and Sawyer had no data on it. But of course, the true highlight was Greninja versus Sceptile. After a bit of a warm-up, it was time for them to use their full power, with Sawyer Mega Evolving Sceptile and Greninja becoming
Satoshi Gekkoga.
I've got one word to describe this matchup: epic. Seeing Greninja and Sceptile go toe-to-toe was awesome as heck, and one of the best Pokemon anime battles I've ever seen. And it wasn't just this one. Every matchup in this episode was great, and this all culminated into Ash Greninja landing an epic finishing Water Shuriken to take the match. Man, what an amazing battle and a great way to end Ash's rivalry with Sawyer. And thanks to that, Ash is on his way to the finals. This episode's rating is a 10 out of 10. Episode 5. Kalos League Passion with a certain flair. This episode begins with Meyer and Clembot arriving with Lumiose Gallets to celebrate Ash making it to the finals. But after a little fit between Pancham and Chespin, Chespin gets lost. Wait. What? Oh, he gets found pretty quickly. By Marin. Okay, now that's interesting. Turns out this episode is actually set up for the Team Flare arc. Now some might get mad at this, but I guess it's a different change of pace considering how fast the Kalos League was going. But it actually makes sense to have this episode, because this is where Ash's journey and Alon's journey truly collide, and I love it so much. This is really the calm before the storm, cause not only is the Kalos League finals about to happen, but we also get Lysander who arrives to watch as well, so you know something's about to go down. In fact, he even tells Ash that he wants to meet him after the league, and we all know what happens there. Another interesting thing to note is that this episode finally reveals that the Ash Greninja transformation is called the Bond Phenomenon, which is pretty cool, but I made a whole video on it, so check that out. All in all, this episode was great. It was the perfect transition the league needed to separate itself from its friendly rival battles and get us ready for the final showdown. My absolute favorite moment is seeing my boy Ash walking into the stadium for the finals. I love this moment so much because of how hype it was. Ash is at the finals, guys! Let's go! This episode's rating is an 8 out of 10. Episode 6. Finals, not for the faint-hearted. This episode was freaking awesome. It's the championship battle after all, so I'm glad this episode delivered. Aside from Noivern who took an early L, everyone else in this episode gave it their all and did not disappoint. Hawlucha gets an epic moment where it comes out of its Pokeball to avenge Noivern, which was sick. Cause of this, we got one of its most badass wins ever against Weavile. Talonflame gets some shine too, by having an epic aerial battle against, I can't believe I'm saying this, Unpheasant. Yeah, the finals are so awesome that they even made Alon's Unpheasant kinda cool. These two birds just kept colliding with each other, so it ended in a tie, and I'm not even mad about that. The biggest MVP is Ash's Pikachu though. It takes out not one, but two pseudo-legendaries. Are you kidding me? That's freaking awesome! Pikachu gets the first win of the match by taking out Tyranitar, then later on, it also takes out a freaking Metagross. This was actually kinda cool, cause I'm pretty sure it's a throwback to Ash vs Tyson. The episode ends with Alon sending out Charizard earlier than expected, so you know that shit's about to go down. Like I've been saying all throughout, this was an awesome episode. The perfect way to kick off the finals with lots of non-stop fast-paced action. This episode's rating is a 9 out of 10. The final episode. Down to the fiery finish. This is it, the epic and controversial finale. The reason it's controversial is cause Ash loses.
No! No!
Now the biggest problem people have is the fact that this whole league has been hyping up Ash to win. It even went as far as having the Japanese title, Kalos League Victory, Ash's Ultimate Battle. So yeah, I get why you'd get mad about that, cause even I was at first. But what do I think about it now that it's been 3 years? My only real complaint was Goodra. It sucked. All that hype of it returning only for it to not get a single legit win. Nice. But once Greninja comes out, the episode really kicks it into high gear. The final matchup is Mega Charizard X versus Satoshi Gekoga. I honestly can't think of a better way to end the Kalos League, as it's the most hyped Pokemon of the XYZ series against the most hyped Mega Evolution. The animation was on point here, and it's insane to see these two titans trade blows with each other. Dude, I was so hyped watching this battle even when I knew the outcome. Some awesome highlights are when Greninja uses Water Shuriken to counter Blast Burn, uses Water Shuriken as a freaking sword against Thunder Punch, and then the final collision of the giant Water Shuriken and Blast Burn. I think Water Shuriken might be my favorite move. Now yeah, Ash lost, but you gotta admit, it was a great way to go out. Better than the freaking Unova League. And after all this was done, the episode ends with Lysander interrupting the closing ceremony by attacking Lumio City with his controlled Zygarde. This was actually a great segue into the Team Flare arc. And because the league ended with an epic final battle, I'm actually satisfied with how it ended. So this episode's rating is an 8 out of 10. This league's overall rating is a solid 8 out of 10. It was great. It actually could have been the best, but the biggest problem holding it back is how rushed it felt. And I get it, the most important action is during the final brackets, but I feel like we still could have seen Ash climb up the ranks like every other league. It honestly feels like I missed an episode or something, but I didn't, so that's a problem. Another complaint is Goodra. It didn't do much, so it was kind of a disappointment to be honest. So much for the hype of its return. Imagine if when Charizard or Gliscor came back and they didn't win, they just lost or tied. That would suck. Other than that though, everything else was great. And although many people hated the outcome of Ash vs Alon, it actually makes sense since Alon's Charizard has way more experience. It did battle legendaries after all. Plus, losing to Alon isn't even that bad. He's a character we've been following alongside Ash's Kalos journey, so I'd rather have Ash lose giving it his all against him than the last minute characters introduced in every other league. It was starting to get annoying. And hey, even though Ash did lose, this is the closest he's ever been to winning a league. So shouldn't we be proud of him? All I know is that if he keeps this up, one day our boy Ash will reach his goal of becoming a Pokemon Master.
Now, time for the Alola League.
Episode 1. It's time for Alola's first ever Pokemon League, and the big twist of this league is that anyone can enter. So it's not just Ash who's excited to compete, but all of his classmates as well. Now what I like about this episode is how the pacing felt more like a traditional Pokemon League, while the Kalos League was all like,
Gotta go fast, gotta go fast, gotta go faster, 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 faster.
This one actually takes its time in a good way to focus on the arrival and then the reintroduction of Ash's league rivals. And we've got a couple. We've got How, Gladion, Elima, can't talk to him though cause VIPs only, and the most interesting one of them all, your boy Guzma. That's right, Guzma is competing and planning to end all future Alola leagues when he becomes the champion, essentially ruining Kukui's dream right when it's about to take off. I love this element because it all of a sudden changes the Alola League from a fun and friendly competition to a struggle against Guzma and Team Skull in order to preserve the true spirit of the league. Yeah, the championship title is on the line like always, but now the gang also has to make sure that Guzma doesn't win and ruin everything. So all in all, I think this episode was a good setup for what's to come. Although we don't get much of Gladion or Alima, the episode makes up for it by giving us more Guzma and Kukui backstory that'll play a major role all throughout the league. This episode's rating is a 7 out of 10. Episode 2. Alright, this was a wild ride from start to finish. This is cause the preliminary round has all 151 trainers facing off in one huge battle royale. Freaking insane. They weren't kidding when they said anyone can enter, cause everyone is here. Yeah, even Team Rocket is here to compete, and don't worry, they got Beware in check. Some awesome moments are the Ash and Gladion encounter where they both make a badass knockout without even looking and pretty much tell each other not to lose, Kiawe taking out Viren's goons, Alima taking out literally all of Team Skull including Plumeria, the Pikachu and Mimikyu rematch, yeah! It's like all the action that was missing in the Sun and Moon anime was crammed into this episode. I love it! Because anyone can enter, the Battle Royale was actually a really smart way to quickly separate the weak from the strong. But the problem with having so much happening so quickly is that some things are gonna get glossed over. For example, we don't really get to see Guzma do much, or even see Mallow who's using a freaking Shaman for the first time. Also, tell me something. Where the heck was Hao? We should have seen these things, but we didn't, so the episode is gonna downgrade a bit for me because of that. But I won't let it be too big of a hindrance cause this was still a really fun and hype episode. Also, it was great to see the main cast all advance to the final tournament, even though most of them really shouldn't. This episode's rating is a 7 out of 10. Episode 3. Now it's time for the top 16 to duke it out in the one-on-one first round. What's pretty cool about this episode is that we get to see 4 battles, so there's no shortage of action, unless you're a Hao fan. But besides that, every other battle was pretty good in their own way. Ash vs Faba was hilarious. Faba tries to be a little sneaky by making Hypno send out Ash's weakest link, Meltan, but it actually backfires cause Meltan eats Hypno's pendant and knocks it out with the flash cannon. Guzma vs Alima was my personal favorite of the episode cause it showed how much of a threat Guzma is. He defeats Alima, the guy who was expected to win the whole league even when he used the Mega Kangaskhan. His strategy was to make sure that the baby Kanga was in the way of the mother's attacks so she would have to stop. This gave Guzma the perfect opening to strike. Freaking savage, but also clever. Definitely makes up for the fact that we barely saw him in the last episode. And then the final highlight, Lana versus Mallow. This battle was great because it wasn't just a battle between best friends, but also it helped develop Mallow a bit more. She wasn't really sure of herself before the battle and even tries to give up when things were getting too tough. But after some words of encouragement from Lana and seeing her Sarina's desire to keep battling, Mallow was able to keep going and finally master her Z move. Because of this, we got an awesome collision between Bloom Doom and a Z move I'm pretty sure I'm not allowed to show you. In the end, Mallow ends up losing, but it was still a great match that helped her make her a more confident battler. This episode's rating is an 8 out of 10. Episode 4. The first round continues with the final 4 battles, the first half being meh, while the second half being pretty good. Sophocles vs Mina was kinda basic. I will say though, it was cool when Vikavolt knocked out Ribombee with a point-blank signal beam, so I'll give it that. Next up was a Team Rocket battle, Jessie vs James. Apparently Jessie said she's the one who has to win, so the tension of the battle was immediately taken away. But wait, a twist! James is the one who ends up winning thanks to the power of love. What are you doing here? Get out! Yeah, I was a bit disappointed by it cause the battle was played up for laughs when it could have been so much better. Next up is Kiawe vs Acerola, and this is what really helped the episode. It was a solid battle with some decent challenge for Kiawe since he had to overcome Gengar's cursed body ability as well as having Marowak's bones stolen. It was both cool and hilarious to see Marowak go inside of Gengar to get it back, and in the end, Kiawe advances thanks to Marowak's final Shadow Bone. Nice one. Then there's the final first round battle of Gladion versus Lily. This was my favorite of the episode. Now, a lot of people complained about how quick it was, but what did you expect? Lily is probably the weakest of the Sun and Moon gang, and some of y'all are out here expecting an epic 20-minute battle? Nah, son. The battle happened exactly how it should've. And even though she lost, like Gladion and Lusamine, I was just proud to see how much Lily has grown as a trainer, which was the whole point of the battle in the first place. And with that, the top 8 advances to the quarterfinals. This episode's rating is a 6 out of 10. Episode 5. Ash's next opponent is Hao and his Decidueye, and Rowlet is so pumped that he calls for his old family to come help with some last minute training. Now, I wasn't too thrilled with this episode, but before we talk about that, let's start off with the positives. Firstly, the little speech Ash gives his friends on why he's letting Rowlet battle. Even though he'll be at a disadvantage, Ash goes through with it because it's what Rowlet really wanted. I love this because it showed that Ash isn't just focused on the win, but also he wants to fulfill his Pokemon's goals as well. Second is the Gladion and James battle, where Gladion counters Black Hole Eclipse with Continental Crush. It's exactly what Ash did against Nanu. And not only was it a nice callback, but it also showed that Gladion is starting to adopt Ash's unpredictability just a bit. And lastly, I like how Ash and Hao use their Z moves right off the bat. Using up their Z moves so early on means that they can rely on it to win, which will make the rest of their battle a lot more interesting. Now for what I don't like. It's a training episode in the middle of the league, and it's not even a great one. Not only did it halt the pacing of the league a bit, but the episode couldn't really decide if it wanted to focus on the training or Gladion versus James. So it awkwardly jumps between both and we barely get to see Rowlet's training, which is supposed to be the main focus of the episode. Luckily it has the good moments I mentioned, or this would have been a lot worse. This episode's rating is a 5 out of 10. Episode 6. Alright, time for this one. We kick things off with the continuation of Ash vs Hao, and it's a pretty damn good one. Even though Rowlet's facing off against his evolved form, he was giving it his all. I was at the edge of my seat though, cause at any moment, the Decidueye's hits could have been too much for the little guy. Like that epic Brave Bird and Sky Attack collision. That looked rough, but don't worry, it's gonna be fine cause Rowlet's gonna pull through. Any minute now. Wait. Oh god. Are you kidding me? Oh my freaking god, the Alola League is the worst damn league I've ever— Wait, he was asleep? Okay, not gonna lie, that got me, and that was freaking funny. Not only was this a funny troll moment, with no real consequence by the way, but it's totally in line with Rowlet's character. I mean, he even fell asleep during Hollow's Grand Trial, which is probably why he objected the call in the first place, since he's seen this shit before. Also, I love how this became like actual sports now, with plays being reviewed and overturned. Poor Hao though. Not only did this league do him dirty by barely showing him, but now his own damn grandfather overturned his potential win. It's not too big of a deal though, since that's not Ash's main rival of the series. And before you say it, there's a difference between Charizard, who straight up refused to battle in the Indigo League, and Rowlet, who always falls asleep no matter what the situation. It's just who he is. Yeah, it's bullshit, but technically Decidueye didn't defeat it, so it's still satisfying to see Rowlet get the win. Especially with the awesome Feather Dance mastery followed by a Brave Bird.
Know your fucking place, trash!
But what do I know? I'm just a blind Sun and Moon fanboy who wears Ash's XY clothes, and has Ash Greninja as his mascot. It's also really nice to see that Rowlet's win motivated Meltan to call its friends, which will play a really important part later on. The episode ends with the beginning of Kiawe vs Sophocles, and I gotta say, it looks fire. This was an awesome way to kick off their battle, and it gave an already solid episode even more great content. This episode's rating is an 8 out of 10. Fight me. Episode 7. Kiawe vs Sophocles continues, and things are really heating up. It's the Z Student versus the Z Master. Who will be the winner of this epic duel? It's obviously Kiawe. Now, even though this battle had a great start in the last episode, I really wasn't feeling it this time. Maybe because I'm not a huge Sophocles fan, or maybe because the animation went from this to this. They try to make it epic by showing a collision between Supersonic Sky Strike and Wild Charge, but again, I really wasn't feeling it. Luckily, Lana vs. Guzma redeemed the episode for me. What I loved about this battle is that it shows Guzma's strength, but also how damn savage he is. He knew Lana's weaknesses and exploited them to the fullest. He was ruthless and relentless and showed no mercy whatsoever. I honestly felt bad for Primarina, cause Guzma and Galisapod barely gave him the chance to even breathe. Even when Lana tries to give it her all with a Z move, damn it, you know I can't show that one, Lana. Guzma says screw your Z move, and not only has Galisapod cut through it, but also knock out Primarina in that same swoop. Dang. Guzma was no joke, and you know he went a little extra just to rub it in Kukui's face. This was great because it made Guzma even more menacing. And then the episode ends with the revelation of the semi-final matches, Kiawe vs. Gladion and Ash vs. Guzma. Now this was hype. In the end, although the first half of the episode wasn't looking so good, literally, the second half made up for it by hyping up Guzma for his inevitable battle with Ash. This episode's rating is a 6 out of 10. Episode 8. Alright, it's time for the semi-final match of Kiawe vs. Gladion, and the battles are now 2-on-2. Finally, one element I liked from this episode is that Kiawe's sister Mimo arrives to cheer him on. After Gladion saved Mimo from Team Skull and was helping her find Kiawe, it was super sweet to see that she reminded him of a younger Lily, showing that he really cares for his sister even if he's not as obvious as Kiawe. This was a wholesome addition to the episode, cause now both trainers have their younger sisters cheering them on, which is really gonna help them go all out. And boy do they do. The battle starts out explosive with fast-paced action and awesome animations. Lycanroc vs. Marowak might have been the warm-up, but it was still a great way to kick things off. Then we get the true highlight of the episode, Turtonator vs. Lycanroc. This battle was even more intense, with Gladion trying to end the match with a sweep and Kiawe giving it his all to try to stay alive. In the end, Turtonator pulls through by learning Focus Blast on the spot and defeating Lycanroc. Then the episode ends with Gladion sending out his sacred beast, Silvally. Man, that's what I'm talking about. This was an awesome episode. Unfortunately, it does take a while for the battle to get started, like, it doesn't even happen till halfway through the episode. The Mimo stuff was good, but the stuff with Team Rocket scheming, Team Skull being Team Skull, and showing Beware for the 10th time this league ate up unnecessary time. I just wanted to get to the battle. Aside from that though, I loved everything else. So this episode's rating is an 8 out of 10. Episode 9. Now besides getting even longer unnecessary scenes of Team Rocket and Beware, again, here we get the conclusion of Kiawe vs. Gladion and the beginning of Ash vs. Guzma. Now going back to the first battle, it was cool to see that both Kiawe and Gladion want to win in order to face Ash in the finals, showing that even when Ash isn't battling, it's still about him. In the end, Kiawe takes the L, but at least he tried his best. He tried to win with Inferno Overdrive, like he always does, but Gladion changes Silvally into a fire type in order to resist the Z move. Kinda bullshit and definitely illegal, but I thought it was really cool. It was also heartwarming to see that they formed a new rivalry thanks to this battle. Aww. Now for Ash vs. Guzma. This was definitely an intense one cause this is what the league has been building up to since Guzma's entry. An interesting moment before the battle is how the look in Ash's eyes reminded Guzma of Kukui, which he didn't really like. This was a cool moment that'll truly pay off in the following episode. Now although during the beginning of the battle it seemed like Guzma was in control, that wasn't gonna stop Ash. It was awesome to see Torcat go sicko mode on Galisapod even though it was at a disadvantage. I guess it was too much for Galisapod to handle, cause it uses emergency exit to retreat from Torcat's Fire Blast and send out Scizor instead. And you can probably guess what happens next. Big oof indeed. This moment was interesting cause now the once cool, calm and collected Guzma is now off balance and furious. This was a great cliffhanger, cause although it might have given Ash the edge a bit, Guzma's rage might mean that he'll come at Ash a lot harder, so there's still no telling how this battle might end up. This episode's rating is an 8 out of 10. Episode 10. Ash vs. Guzma continues, and not only do we get an epic conclusion, but more of Guzma's backstory with a satisfying resolution. I like how although Ash is the one who wins this battle and advances to the finals, the episode mostly focuses on Guzma. So it turns out that the reason Guzma ran away was because he found Hala's teachings useless cause he could never beat Kukui. This explains why the look on Ash's eyes really bothers him. Then through Plumeria, we learn that the reason Guzma is undefeated is because he only takes challenges he knows he can win. Guzma is strong, yes, but if he saw that someone even had a chance at beating him, he'd run away, which perfectly parallels his Galisapod. We even see Guzma kind of retreat to this mindset in the battle. He constantly tells Ash to give up and forget about winning, but Ash keeps on pushing, refusing to give up till the very end. Sound familiar? Guzma was so scared of losing that he even considered making Team Skull destroy the league because of it. But then he finally realized the most important thing that was missing in order to become strong. Trust in his Pokemon, which is what Ash always has. After seeing Galisapod tank a freaking Gigavolt Havoc and refusing to run away anymore, it finally clicked within him that he shouldn't run away and give it all he's got instead. I love this so much, and I was not expecting such a deep underlying story for this episode. And in the end, once Guzma is finally proven to be defeatable, Team Skull is still there. He thought he was gonna lose his followers, but all it did was motivate them to be just as good in battle as he is. It was so touching to see that Team Skull really loves their boss because he gives them hope that they won't always be losers. God damn, Sun and Moon, I wasn't expecting you to hit me in the feels. This episode's rating is a 9 out of 10. Episode 11. Alright, it's time for the Alola League Finals, and it's our boy Ash versus Edgelord Gladion. And this time, the battle is 3-on-3. Now before the battle, it was nice to see that Ash's mom and Professor Oak came to cheer him on. It was a nice throwback to the original series. It was also during this time that all of Meltan's friends finally arrived so they can fuse and evolve into Melmetal. Alright, this was cool, cause now Ash has a huge powerhouse on his team to definitely give him the edge over Gladion. Well, that sucked. Okay, I know a lot of people were disappointed by Melmetal taking an L right after it evolved, but you gotta remember that it had 0 training since it was caught and only had like 1 official battle before this one, so it made sense for Melmetal to get outclassed. But you gotta give it credit though, it did put in some work, even though Ash was spamming double Iron Bash a lot. Thanks to Melmetal, Gladion's Silvally was pretty tenderized when it came time to face Pikachu. It was awesome to see Ash outsmart Gladion by using Electro Web to slingshot Pikachu and add some more force to its Iron Tail. This was a cool ass win. Then the episode ends with Gladion sending out his next Pokemon, Lycanroc. But wait, that ain't Lycanroc, cause it's actually Mont Zoroark in disguise. All in all, this was a pretty solid start to the finals. Having Gladion take the first win shows that he isn't one to be taken lightly and deserves to be here just as much as Ash. And the cliffhanger of Zoroark's reveal really makes you want to see what happens next and how Ash will handle it, so I am so ready for the conclusion of this battle. This episode's rating is an 8 out of 10. Episode 12. Ash vs Gladion continues, and it's no joke, cause Alola's first ever champion is decided in this episode. And goddamn, was it an amazing one. The episode barely starts and we already get an epic clash between Pikachu and Zoroark. It was epic as hell to see Pikachu charge in through Zoroark's never-ending nightmare with breakneck blitz of all Z moves. One of the best double knockouts I've ever seen, to be honest. Then we get the true climax of Gladion's Midnight Lycanroc versus Ash's Dusk form Lycanroc. I love this matchup. Not only does this doggo fight live up to the hype of a final battle, but it feels like a pretty good payoff for the Lycanroc rivalry. The little Rockruff who admired the unbeatable Lycanroc is now finally battling it on equal ground. It was awesome. Yeah, the battle may not be on the same level as Infernape's storyline, but for Lycanroc, it works. This battle was brutal, with Gladion's Lycanroc having the upper hand most of the time thanks to counter. But leave it to our boy Ash to turn things around thanks to his unpredictability by literally countering the final counter. What? This was wild. But because of that final trump card, Ash defeats Gladion and is now the champion of the Alola League. Guys, this was it. He actually did it. Our boys finally won an official Pokemon League. This moment was amazing. It's what every Ash Ketchum fan has been waiting for since the very beginning. I even freaking cried when it happened, guys. This moment was so unbelievable that even Ash himself wasn't sure if he won or not, and I don't blame him. 22 long years, constantly losing major league battles, but finally, our boy has finally done it. It's amazing, I don't know how else to put it. Then the episode ends with a Guzzlord appearing from an Ultra Wormhole during the awards ceremony. Geez, crazy cliffhanger to an already monumental episode. You already know what I'm giving this episode. Its rating is a 10 out of 10. Episode 13. This one was decent, I guess. Now that's not to say it was a bad one, cause it has some pretty cool moments, but I just feel like it wasn't executed well enough. It's all about Guzzlord attacking the Alola League. But wait, there's more! Cause there's also 2 shiny Guzzlords as well. Why did they all appear here at the same time? Beats me. Now one moment I liked is seeing Team Rocket rescue Beware. The whole series has had Beware save Team Rocket from blasting off, but it was nice to see them finally return the favor. Plus, it was a good way to get rid of the ridiculously OP Beware that would have easily taken away the tension. It was also awesome to see all the kahunas in action as well. The problem though is that the whole conflict is resolved in one episode, so it feels super rushed. What is this, the Kalos League? The Tapu show up to help, but they don't really do that much, and the Guzzlords are taken out pretty easily once a few Z moves are combined. And although it was awesome to see everyone use combined Z moves, the hype is kinda taken away when you realize it's just 5 minutes of reused animation. Well, at least everyone had a moment to shine. God damn it, Lana! Honestly, it feels like this episode was created just to have multiple different wormholes show up just to justify Poipol's return, who's now an Agonadel. And yeah, it's cool that it came back and all, but it happened so last minute with no explanation that it feels kinda forced. I will say though, the cliffhanger of the Masked Squirrel's identity being revealed was a good way to end it off and one of the episode's biggest redeeming factors. Oh, that was a big sentence. As for the rest, it's alright, but it would have been better as a 2-parter. This episode's rating is a 6 out of 10. Episode 14. Alright, now that the minor inconvenience of Guzzlord is over and dealt with, it's time for the exhibition battle of Alola champion Ash, god it feels good to say that, versus Professor Kukui. You know, since the whole Masked Squirrel secret is out. But this actually makes things better if you ask me. Especially since this time, it's gonna be a full battle. That explains why Naganadel came back so conveniently. Now what's cool about this episode is that it actually feels like a warm-up for the whole battle, but it's still a damn good one. It could have easily started with crazy action and quick wins right away, but it didn't, and I really appreciate that. This isn't just gonna be a crazy battle for the sake of having one, cause it's actually a pretty important one. This battle is not only Torracat's chance to redeem itself against Incineroar, but Ash is also battling his father figure of the series. So the hype is real. Yeah, it might be a slow start, but that just means that this battle will be a long one and there's gonna be so much more to look forward to. Also, it's not like it doesn't have its moments, cause it does. We have freaking Torracat over here who took a blast burn to the face and literally absorbed it. We could have used you back in Kalos. And Lycanroc who catches one of its Stone Edges mid-air to hit Incineroar, which really reminded me of Ash's Krokorok when it did the same thing against Bryson. It was awesome. All in all, this episode did a good job of setting up the rest of the battle and really shows how smart Ash is battling by using unique strategies and even switching out if necessary. Kukui even does the same, so you know that the Torracat vs Incineroar rematch is coming later on. This is just the beginning. This episode's rating is a 7 out of 10. Episode 15. Okay, this is where the real battle begins. Unlike the last episode where Ash and Kukui were just testing their skills, in this one, they actually do some damage. Right off the bat, Lycanroc is taken out by Braviary, and this was actually pretty smart, cause not only does it show that Kukui is strong enough to defeat the Pokemon that won Ash the league, but it also means that Ash can't rely on his ace anymore and has to prove that he can win with other Pokemon as well. Rowlet took out Braviary, guys. Are you still doubting God? Probably the best aspect of this match is seeing Ash and Kukui switching their Pokemon to get the best results. It almost feels like a chess match, with each one of them making strategic changes to give them the better advantage. For example, when Ash uses Torracat against Venusaur, of course he wants to save it for Incineroar, but he saw the opportunity to get a quick win thanks to its type advantage. Kukui does the exact same. He realized Melmetal was gonna be a huge threat after seeing how his Empoleon couldn't do a single thing against it. So what does he do? Sends out his strongest Pokemon to take it out before it can do more damage. Damn, I love this episode. We got so much action, but it was really cool to see them try to outsmart each other as well. And the best part of it all is that Ash and Kukui are having so much fun battling each other. The episode ends with Kukui sending out Lucario and Ash sending out Naganadel. I loved how everyone got so shook the moment Ash took out a Beast Ball. Like, yeah, Ash has got an Ultra Beast on his side, and he's ready to wreck some shit. This episode's rating is a 9 out of 10. Episode 16. Ash vs Kukui continues stronger than ever before, and it kicks off with Naganadel vs Lucario. Ash knew Lucario had more experience, so the only way to win was to lure it into a close fight and use that opportunity to land an up-close and personal Dragon Pulse. It was really cool to see Ash battle smartly like that, and I was so happy to see Naganadel get the win. Could you imagine if it came back only to lose and not get a single win? I would never. That was just the appetizer though, cause now it's time for the main course of the episode, Torracat vs Incineroar. It's finally time for their rivalry to conclude, and gosh dang, was this battle flames! What's awesome about this match is how Ash is able to get the upper hand thanks to Flame Charge. By increasing Torracat's speed, his attacks are not only connecting more, but hitting a lot harder thanks to the Blast Burn boost. This battle was so intense that both cats end up activating their Blaze ability, which was awesome. Infernape, where you at? I love the moment where Ash and Kukui both use Infernal Overdrive at the same time. Not only was this awesome visually, but it's also the Z move Ash taught Kukui how to use as a kid, so it all came full circle. And after an epic collision within the giant fireball, once the dust clears, Incineroar takes the fall. Hell yeah! And just when you think that's it, Torracat uses the last of its strength to evolve into Incineroar. Oh my god! This episode was amazing because not only did Torracat achieve its goal of defeating Incineroar, but it also evolved, which is what a lot of us fans wanted. I'm not even mad that it knocked itself out in the process. Yeah, it would have been cool to see Incineroar in action, but having it stay and lose right after the battle of its life would kinda take away from its triumphant moment. He went out in a good way, and if anything, its evolution is more of a reward for winning. The episode ends with Tapu Koko showing up to take the place of Kukui's last Pokemon so that it can battle Ash. What the heck? This is really happening, huh? What an end to an insanely awesome episode, and I was not disappointed by anything. So this episode's rating is a 10 out of 10. The final episode. This is it, the Alola League Grand Finale. Ash's final challenge, the legendary guardian deity Tapu Koko. From the jump, the episode does not hold anything back and hits us with insane action. Naganadel vs Tapu Koko might have been the warm-up for the episode, but it does not disappoint. I mean, Naganadel loses, which is disappointing, but you know what I mean. Then it's time for Ash's final Pokemon, his day one partner, Pikachu. And goddamn, Pikachu is actually going in on Tapu Koko. What makes this battle so great is the fact that Tapu Koko has always had some sort of rivalry with Pikachu, so both Pokemon want to give it their all. So much in fact, that Tapu Koko decides it wants to go all out with the Z move. So after a little rejuvenation song from the Tapus, both Ash and Kukui have their Z power restored. And then we get, hands down, the best moment in the entire league. An epic climactic Z move clash between Tapu Koko's Guardian of Alola and Pikachu's 10 million volt Thunderbolt. And my goodness! The animation, the colors, the father and son Kamehameha, all of it, it's absolutely amazing! If you don't think this moment is cool, then something is seriously wrong with you. And the icing on the cake is when Ash and Pikachu reflect on their time in Alola. They realize they felt the power of Alola all throughout, and now it was time to become one and use that power to the fullest, whatever that means. But it was so cool! In the end, Guardian of Alola wasn't enough to stop our boy, so Tapu Koko takes the fall and Ash wins the exhibition match. Man, what a freaking battle! Not only did Ash beat Professor Kukui, but also the legendary Tapu Koko. Add that to the list. This episode was amazing, the perfect conclusion for the Alola League and the Sun and Moon anime. I loved it so much, and it just made me even prouder for our boy Ash. Congratulations, champion. This episode's rating is also a 10 out of 10. This league's overall rating is a 7.8 out of 10. It's really good, and actually tied with Johto. Now it's not perfect, but it's far from the worst. Very far. The biggest thing this league's got going for it is the fact that it's 17 freaking episodes long. Not only does this make it the longest league to date, but it's also the only one to show the complete tournament from start to finish. Because of this, we got to see every battle, which was awesome. Now the biggest controversy of this league, besides the Howl battle but get over it, is the fact that there aren't any full battles till Kukui and anyone can enter. Okay? This was actually the best way to handle the Alola League. The goal of the competition wasn't just to find the strongest trainer, but also to help all the participants grow with their Pokemon, and we see that all throughout. In this league, we see things like Malo master her Z move, Lily show her progress as a trainer, Sophocles take on Kiawe without holding back, Kiawe forming a new rivalry with Gladion, Guzma learning not to run away from a challenge and trust his Pokemon, and not only has Ash won his first Pokemon League conference here, but his team went from one of his weakest to finishing off as one of his strongest. I love it! This league perfectly captures Alola's themes, and it's something that the Alola League could have lost if it tried to be more traditional. We would have gotten a lot of skipped battles or a bunch of double knockouts to get to the main action, and that can kinda get annoying if you overdo it too much. Yeah, it has its not so good parts, but what league doesn't? In the end, it had a story it was trying to tell, and it told it beautifully. But if you've never given the Sun and Moon series a chance for whatever reason, you won't enjoy the league as much as I have. You're not gonna get the themes, and you won't truly appreciate the character moments. How are you supposed to care about Lana vs Mallow or Gladion vs Lily if you've never even cared about the characters to begin with? Even Ash vs Kukui, as awesome, long, and action-packed as it is, won't really be enjoyed to the fullest unless you understand Ash and Kukui's relationship that was built up for this moment. In the end, Alola may not be the best league, but at least to me, it's definitely my favorite. It was a lot of fun, and had many great and memorable moments within it. Plus, it finally gave us the Ash win we've all been waiting for. And if you still think this league is the worst after all that I've said, then I really don't know what else to tell you. Oh yeah, I do. Hose Matt.
And finally, let's end things off with the Masters 8 tournament. Now, unlike my league reviews, I won't be rating every single episode as I already did that for their individual reviews. Instead, I'll just be breaking up this review into different sections and then giving you my final rating at the very end. So now, let's get started with our first section, the introduction. Similar to the Pokemon League arcs, we got our standard introduction episode, and like the Kalos League, this was rushed. Before getting to the bad, first the good. Right off the bat, we're introduced to Hop, and although it took him a long time to appear in this series, I'm glad he was still able to show up in some shape or form. He has a pretty hilarious fight with Ash, and was a great guy for Go to bounce off of when it came to battle commentary. I especially like his reaction every time he learned Ash is familiar with one of the Masters 8. I'd be pretty shocked too if a 10-year-old knew a bunch of celebrities. Having Hop here also makes Leon more relatable. As to Hop, he isn't just the undefeated champion, that's his big brother. Having him here alongside Go is a constant reminder that Leon has people counting on him as well, so it adds a bit more weight to his final battle with Ash. Most other tournament arcs just focus on the ones who support Ash, but it's nice to have the other side of the coin here as well. Another good aspect of this introduction was the opening ceremony. Man, was it awesome. Introducing all these champion tier characters with their titles and achievements really makes this feel like the grandest Pokemon battle tournament. And that's where the positives end. Although the opening ceremony was really hype, I feel like there was a huge missed opportunity beforehand by not having Ash interact with any of the Masters 8 besides Iris. Some of these characters we haven't seen in years, and yet they just skip over any chance to properly catch up with them. And to make things worse, when the battles actually start, Ash isn't even watching with the champions, removing even more potential interactions. Ash and Alon don't even speak to each other in this episode. Alon just gives Ash this cold nod in the opening ceremony and that's it. Seriously? Last time we left Alon, he was a lot nicer than this. Why does it feel like we went back to edgy Team Flare Alon? Oh my god, and speaking of Alon, let's talk about the tournament matchups that are revealed during this opening. They're garbage. Alright, Iris versus Cynthia, that one's cool. They have a bit of history, so it's a battle I'm sure many of us can get behind. But Lance versus Diantha? Who cares? Ash versus Steven? Again, who cares? Now that's no disrespect to Steven because he's a pretty cool character, but he's the person in this tournament Ash has had the least amount of interactions with. So it's kind of hard to get hyped or invested with this battle when a match against Alon, Diantha, or even Lance would have been far more exciting. And lastly, Leon versus Alon. A fight we know damn well Leon won't be losing, so you know Alon is going home right after this. And that brings us to our next section. Leon versus Alon. So when it comes to this battle, I get why it happened, I just hate how it was executed. Now I don't know about you, but I'm in the camp in where if Alon wasn't gonna battle Ash, then he shouldn't have been here to begin with. A rematch between these two would have been a satisfying way to redeem Ash's Kalos League loss. Unfortunately, Ash stuck to his Journeys team for this tournament, so I get why they didn't. A rematch against Alon wouldn't be the same without Greninja. So why was Alon here then? To have a Charizard on Charizard fight that'll show off how strong Leon is. Okay, fine. I don't like it, but at least we'll get a cool form fight between G-Max Charizard and Mega Charizard X, right? Right? No, we don't even get that. Leon absolutely destroys Megazard X with base vanilla Charizard in 2 moves. It does not get any more disrespectful than that. Now, Alon losing was inevitable, but the problem is how they made him lose. Because his fight with Leon was shoved into the tournament's opening episode, they had to rush the hell out of this fight so it can be concluded in the same episode. This led to Alon barely putting up a fight, making him look far weaker than he actually is. What makes this sting even more is that I don't think it would have been as bad if this happened to any other character, except for Cynthia, of course. Alon was a big character in X and Y, and we've seen all of his crazy feats that justify his Kalos League win. So why did they make him look like the weakest competitor in the Masters tournament? Even if he isn't a regional champion, he's ranked above Iris, so clearly they're acknowledging his strength and experience. But no, instead we're just gonna get rid of him real quick cause Leon is the big bad now. If you're gonna make Alon lose, at least do it right. Continue the fight into the next episode. Make the match seem a lot closer as to not undermine Alon's strength. Bro, they didn't even have the decency to make Alon use Pokemon we've already seen before. Who the heck is this Chestnut and Malamar? Alon deserved to lose for using these nobody Pokemon. This is why he should have been the one to fight Steven instead. At least then Alon could have gotten at least one win before being sent home. Lance versus Diantha. This is the fight that nobody really cared about. Diantha is probably the least popular champion and Lance is fine, I guess, but a fight against him and Iris would have been far more interesting. Still, this is the fight we got, so let's talk about it. Lance vs Diantha was a nice palate cleanser after the atrocity that was Leon vs Alon. It was a pretty straightforward fight, nothing too crazy, but also nothing infuriating either. Definitely the least controversial fight in the whole tournament. I think the best quality about it is that it's a very video game accurate fight, which contrasts the typical Ash fight we see that involves unpredictable tactics you wouldn't be able to do in the games. For instance, early on, Diantha sets up the dual light screen and reflect, a very real tactic used in competitive Pokemon. She also uses Trick or Treat to change Lance's Gyarados' typing so he can receive big damage from ghost moves. Meanwhile, at the very end, Lance relies on Dynamax so that Dragonite can tank Gardevoir's fairy moves while also stall during the hail given off from Max Hailstorm. Pretty standard video game tactics, but still cool to see in the anime. Unfortunately for Lance though, he takes the L here, but it makes sense. Diantha was the more strategic one in this fight, so she deserved to win. And honestly, I'm happy with this outcome. The winner of this fight will face Leon in the semifinals, so it would have been repetitive if Lance won and fought Leon again, considering we've already seen them fight in the beginning of the series. Also, this fight made Diantha look good, putting some much needed respect on her name. Iris vs Cynthia. Finally, a matchup I can actually get behind. Iris and Cynthia battled all the way back in Best Wishes, and it's actually referenced in this fight. The goal here is to show off how far Iris has come since then, and I think it did a pretty fine job. Iris gets the lead early on thanks to Excadrill, which 1 was awesome because we haven't seen him in a while, and 2, it's the first Pokemon Iris truly owned. We've seen their development in early Best Wishes, so to see that he's her first pick in the Pokemon world's largest battle stage is a nice touch. These two really have been through everything together. Can't really say the same for Dragonite though. Man, has this dude fallen from grace. In Best Wishes, Dragonite was a near unstoppable force of nature, but in Journeys it's taken out by Dracovish in its debut battle, and is easily taken out by Cynthia's Milotic. Now to be fair, I think the whole point is to make Cynthia's Milotic look OP like in the games, so it seems like an even bigger deal when Haxorus is able to take it out, which I think the battle does rather effectively. And then we get the final showdown, Haxorus vs Garchomp. Can I start out by saying how gosh dang epic this was to have Cynthia's Garchomp come out to literal boss music? That scene went hard, and really captures how intimidating Cynthia and Garchomp are. Sorry though, dub fans, they'll probably ruin this moment. Garchomp! Seeing Haxorus go toe-to-toe with Cynthia's Garchomp is something I never would have imagined, but props to Journeys for allowing Iris to grow and reach this point. This truly is a battle where the student tries to surpass the master. The thing is though, I'm pretty sure Iris wasn't expecting this. Mega freaking Garchomp is here, and man is this thing a monster. Garchomp was already fearsome enough as it is, and now it can surpass its normal form? Cynthia is cracked! This battle truly does a good job at letting both these queens shine. Cynthia gets to assert her dominance, further hyping up her fight with Ash, while Iris is able to shine by showing off how much she's grown. Not enough to surpass Cynthia yet, but still impressive nonetheless. I mean, she did push Cynthia to use Mega Evolution after all, so that's saying something. Now this is how you make someone we care about lose with dignity and respect. Ash vs Steven. Damn, Journeys, back at it again with a controversial battle. The big problem with this one is that structurally, Ash was not meant to win this. Now, I'm not saying I want Ash to lose, I'm not one of those people, but I just mean that the battle plays out in a way where it really seemed like Steven was meant to win this. Now obviously I get it, the point was to make Steven seem powerful and have Ash win against all odds. This isn't new to anime, but the way Ash turns things around doesn't feel believable to me. For instance, out the gate Dracovish is taken out by Aggron, giving Steven the lead. Good way to add some tension by showing Steven's strength while also putting Ash at a disadvantage. Gengar comes out, hits it with Will-O-Wisp, then pushes it back with Dazzling Gleam. But what's this? It looks like it didn't phase Aggron that much, and Ash and Gengar are even shook with how sturdy Aggron is. Crap, what's the play now? Oh wait, never mind, it dies from burn damage. That was stupid. The middle section of the battle is really the only good part because it feels like they're actually putting in some thought to this. Cradily is able to defeat Gengar with his tentacles, so the way Ash defeats Cradily is by using Pikachu's Electro Web to trap those tentacles, leaving it wide open for an attack. Moments like these make for good comebacks. There was an obstacle, and Ash came up with a clever way to overcome it, not letting freaking burn damage do most of the work. Then we get to the most annoying part, Pikachu versus Mega Metagross. The obstacle here is that Metagross can predict all of Pikachu's attacks, allowing it to easily dodge everything. So how does Ash overcome this? By using his most powerful attack, even though he hasn't figured out how to hit Metagross yet. Why would he do that? And to make matters worse, Metagross actually dodges the Z move, but then Pikachu redirects it and takes it out? This literally makes no sense. Since when could Pikachu do that? Feels like the writers wrote themselves in a corner by making Steven too good, so they relied on the Z move as a lazy way out. No thought, no strategy, it was just a straight up win button. It's so weird too, cause Ash even figured out a counter for Metagross in the beginning, but it never came up when it actually mattered. I'm so disappointed. Alright, and that concludes the first round of the Masters Tournament. And not gonna lie, it's not that great. But before continuing with the semifinals, let's first take a quick break to talk about the actual breaks and recaps that happened during this arc. For those of you who didn't watch the Masters Tournament week to week as they aired in Japan, God bless your innocent soul. During this arc, Pokemon Journeys gave us a number of break weeks where episodes didn't air, or even worse, we got recaps. These weren't just your standard recaps that we got on special occasions, these are recaps that counted as actual legit episodes. Imagine looking forward to what's supposed to be the most hype arc in the Pokemon anime, only to be hit with a recap of Chloe's evolution adventures, or Go's Project Mew missions, or recaps of the Masters Tournament during the Masters Tournament. Probably the worst of the recaps was the very first one. Like, Chloe isn't even at the Masters Tournament and now it's interrupted to focus on her? It felt so damn weird. The only silver lining is that this recap could potentially lead us to the climax of Chloe and Eevee's arc. Maybe a new evolution, maybe G-Max Eevee is coming? No, instead we got an episode about Cerise's childhood with a Clefairy and now Chloe's interested in evolution. I'm sorry, did you just interrupt the Masters Tournament for... Man, like, at least the Go recap followed with him leaving to do Project Mew. This literally felt like a waste of time. However, now that the tournament arc is complete, we finally understand the reason why we got so many breaks and recaps. Ironically, around the time where the tournament began, the anime staff let go of a lot of people, meaning that the people who were still working on the anime were most likely, no, they were definitely overworked. At the same time though, they were also working on an absolute visual masterpiece of an episode. That had to take in a lot of time and resources. So yeah, the breaks make sense. Now, even though I'm bringing up the recaps here, don't get it twisted, cause I'm not letting it affect my opinions of the overall arc. In fact, I skipped them during my rewatch, cause I care about my sanity, and I'm not even counting the Chloe filler since it literally has nothing to do with the tournament. I'm just addressing it because I know many of us had to sit through these during the weeks the arc aired, and I imagine it might have negatively affected our first time experience. I'll admit it, these constant breaks killed my excitement for the Masters Tournament back then. Luckily, we're in the future now, and we can just skip through those episodes and get to the ones that really matter. The Masters Tournament actually has some pretty good pacing when you don't include the recaps. So hopefully, this explanation brings us to a more positive atmosphere after going through that controversial first round. Leon versus Diantha. Never mind, I spoke too soon. Leon versus Diantha is trash, man. They really did not care about this fight and just wanted to get to Ash versus Cynthia. Most of it happens off screen because Ash and the group gets sidetracked by this little girl who got lost following this Gossifleur or whatever. Did they really just pull a Univa on us? I hate these kids so much. The only thing that truly gets focused from this fight is Mega Gardevoir versus G-Max Charizard, and even there they kinda dropped the ball. They made Diantha look so competent against Lance, but here it's just thrown out the window. They couldn't even make this fight seem close by having most of Diantha's Pokemon get swept by Rillaboom. Not Charizard, but Rillaboom. I don't know if I'm mad or impressed. The problem with this too is if you consider how easily Leon beat Alon and how utterly disrespected Diantha is here, it really makes Leon seem borderline untouchable. I know he's supposed to be the strongest, but you also gotta make it believable that Ash can put somewhat of a fight against him. Cause with how Leon's been looking so far, Ash really should stand no chance against him. So yeah, Leon's Rillaboom is broken, this fight sucks, moving on. Ash versus Cynthia. After 15 years, Ash is finally living up to his promise of battling Cynthia, and thank God it's a 6-on-6. The strongest part of this battle has to be the beginning. Cynthia leads with Spiritomb, and this thing is a menace. Using Hypnosis and Dream Eater to screw over Dragonite, Sucker Punch to get Gengar, and Destiny Bond to get Pikachu, Cynthia was not playing around. My worry coming into this battle was that Cynthia was gonna get nerfed to justify Ash's win, but I'm so glad I was proven wrong. This is one of the best starts to any full battle. Very similar to Ash vs Gary, where Ash is completely outclassed and has to fight an uphill battle to come out on top. Now, although Ash gets wrecked in the beginning, I really loved his use of Counter Shield. This was the perfect fight to bring it back. Something else that surprised me was how well Ash's team performed after the first half went down. I really expected Lucario to carry, but in all honesty, I think the boy Ketchum put in an equal amount of work. Not only did he destroy Stealth Rocks like a badass, not only did he defeat Milotic, but he also held its own against Garchomp. Good shit, my dude. Lucario owes its win to you. And you know what? It's about time we talk about that. Lucario versus Garchomp was an epic fight. Both of these Pokemon were pretty worn out by this point, but they still pushed through and give us an awesome brawl. I love the pure rawness of this fight. Unlike the Steven fight where Ash should have won using his brain, in this fight it makes sense to win using Brawn, cause these are two powerhouse Pokemon. What adds more depth to this final clash as well is the fact that we got a moment between Ash and Cynthia beforehand where they both look back at their beginnings with these Pokemon as eggs. It's a cool parallel. As satisfying as this conclusion is though, I can't help but feel like something is missing. Oh yeah, where's Mega Garchomp? Yeah, unfortunately this fight isn't all good, because for some reason the writers thought it was a good idea for Cynthia to have Dynamax Togekiss be her gimmick for this fight instead of Mega Evolution. Looking back, it really seems like they just did it for shock value and shock value alone. I understand that Cynthia was trying to keep Ash on his toes as he was expecting Mega Evolution the whole time, but the problem is that Dynamax Togekiss didn't really do much in the long run. It just spammed Max Airstream and never took advantage of the speed boost. Imagine if it baton passed into Garchomp. That would have been crazy. But no, instead it just made Togekiss overstay its welcome and robbed Garchomp of fighting at its full power. And now, even though Ash finally defeated Cynthia, which is amazing by the way, there will always be that looming question of whether or not Ash could have beaten her if she actually used the Mega, which is annoying. But either way, I still found this battle to be enjoyable. And now, before talking about the Ash vs Leon finals, let's quickly go over some of the other characters that appeared during this arc that we have yet to talk about. Team Rocket. I barely mentioned them in my episode reviews because their role in each episode is very minimal, but now that we're talking about the entire arc, I can finally share my experience with the trio. I love them here. During the Masters Tournament, they show up as their radio show personas to livestream the battles and give their commentary. Aside from a few Jessie moments with her usual annoying Jessie-isms, Team Rocket were extremely enjoyable throughout this arc. It reminded me of the Sinnoh League, where their cutaways weren't intrusive at all and actually quite fun. From the trio recognizing some of the Masters 8, rooting for Iris, Jessie fangirling over Diantha's Gourgeist, and even their commentary during the episode previews, Team Rocket were an absolute treat, which is saying something cause I'm usually the guy who hates on them. And speaking of treats, I like how Morpeko is always snacking on these different foods from across the Pokemon world, which makes sense since this tournament is a gathering of the world's strongest trainers. I know it's a small detail only dedicated fans would really pick up on or care about, but still, I thought it was cool. I even found it funny how their goal was to steal Pokemon, but they get so into the tournament that by the end they don't even want to stream it anymore and straight up root for Ash. Again, this is just like the Sinnoh League. The only episode I didn't enjoy Team Rocket in was the episode right before the finals, where they're actually behaving like Team Rocket. And yes, I'm counting this episode in the arc because it addresses the whole Eternatus thing, and this is the episode where Go leaves to do Project Mew. That's kind of important. And speaking of which, Go. Yeah, Go leaves this arc, and I'm not such a big fan of this. Throughout the entire Masters Tournament, Go has been cheering for Ash, and I really enjoyed his commentary with Hop. But in the weirdest way possible, right before Ash's biggest match ever, he has to leave to do Project Mew. I think what they were going for is have both Ash and Go reach the climax of their journeys at the same time, but it doesn't really make sense when you consider the Project Mew episodes come out right after the tournament anyways. They could have easily just have Go watch the whole tournament and then when Ash is done, jump right into Project Mew. Because of that, Ash's final battle felt slightly off. On the bright side though, this allowed Chloe and Dawn to show up in Go's place, which I guess makes up for that to some degree. But it still feels weird considering Go has always been there for Ash and now he's not when it matters the most. Now that's what I call a Journeys moment. And since I brought up Dawn and Chloe, let's end this character segment with all the amazing character cameos we got during this arc. Cause I didn't really know where else to mention them without interrupting the battle segments. One of the coolest things about the Masters tournament were all the returning characters watching said tournament. We see Sycamore and Marin watching Alon, Richie, Jimmy, Marina, Jackson or Vincent watching Lance, the XY rivals watching Diantha, Alder and the Unova rivals except Burgundy watching Iris, Flint, Volkner, Paul and Reggie watching Cynthia, the Hoenn rivals, Professor Birch, and even AG characters of the days watching Steven, and best of all, everyone at Oak's lab watching Ash. Oh yeah, and the Cerise Lab crew. What makes these cameos so special is that these are characters we never expected to see again. Like, ever. Did you expect to see Tot Snap again? Cause I sure as heck didn't. Not only was this great fan service for longtime fans, but this also adds to the sheer scope of the Masters tournament. It truly makes this feel like the tournament to end all tournaments when many of the characters we've met across the 25 years of the anime are all spectating this insane event. And I know there's a few major cameos I have yet to mention, and that's because I want to save them for the final segment, cause those truly mattered there. And with that, I think it's about time we talk about the finals of the Masters 8 tournament. Ash versus Leon. This is the battle Ash has been working towards since the beginning of Pokemon Journeys, and in all honesty, I did not think much of this battle at first. I felt like the Cynthia battle was meant to be the big satisfying Ash win for this series. I thought he was gonna lose, and Leon's team didn't excite me. But I have never been more wrong in my life. Starting with Leon's team, my goodness did these guys show up. His Inteleon can dual wield, uses a counter shield, and even knocks Gengar out of Gmax. His Cinderace has Libero. Mr. Rime was swaggy as hell and gave Gengar, Camon, and even Lucario the smoke. Dragapult had the whole team caught off guard and it's the one that took out Mega Lucario. And Rillaboom, he's just Rillaboom. He's a monster. That's something I really like. It's not just Ash's Pokemon that shine in this fight. The pacing definitely played a big part in that. Journeys is notorious for having rushed battles. I mean, just look at the first round. But allowing this final battle to last 4 episodes not only helped emphasize how important it truly is, but it also allowed it to breathe and properly execute its story beats. What's interesting about this battle is that it shares a very similar structure to Ash vs Paul, which is not a bad thing. Like Ash vs Paul, Ash takes the lead early on, which was unexpected. But this was all part of Leon's plan to weaken Ash's team and absolutely destroy his lead. This man was toying with him. Something I've yet to mention is the fact that Leon allows Ash to use all 3 of his battle gimmicks in this fight. It's really awesome because it allows Ash to go all out with everything he has, but also in reality, its usage here is to show how strong Leon actually is. Ash's first 2 wins are due to these gimmicks, and vice versa, Leon's wins are against these gimmick Pokemon, taking out Ash's heaviest hitters early on. Pikachu's 10 million volt Thunderbolt wasn't strong enough to defeat Charizard, and the only reason that annoying Cinderace was defeated was due to the extra Dynamax Eternatus gave Ash and Leon. Real quick on that though, it's the dumbest part of this battle. Pikachu one-shotting Cinderace was a bit too convenient, and also, Cinderace has Libero. Leon could have just used Max Quake and it would have been immune to Pikachu, like how this battle started. But I get it, they wanted to use the Fireball since that's a big design trait, and they wanted to move on to the best part afterwards. But yeah, back to the gimmicks, this actually helps Leon stay consistent with this portrayal. They made him seem near unstoppable in his battles, basically Superman tier powerful. So the battle gimmicks are Ash's way of closing that power gap. I know some might be upset with that and will say that, well, Ash would have lost if he only used 1, and I don't disagree. But still, I enjoyed the battle for what it is, and I think that's the most important part. Plus, Leon uses 2 Gmaxes anyway, so he ain't that innocent either. And now for the finale, Pikachu versus Charizard. This is the best 1v1 ever. We got the best animation in all of Pokemon, this fight was super intense, the blows were impactful, and it felt very personal to Ash. Because Ash was down to Pikachu and not like Lucario or something, this added way more emotional weight than I think any of us were expecting. And then on top of that, this is where they save the return of every Ash Ketchum companion. This was hype as heck. And also, we see Pikachu thinking of every Pokemon Ash has caught. This was a powerful scene. Now I truly feel the weight of this battle. Now I understand the stakes. Ash and Pikachu are about to take down the strongest trainer in the world. All their journeys have led to this battle. And then he does it. Ash defeats the undefeated Leon. What an amazing moment this was. This truly was the best way to end the Masters tournament. They didn't have to go this hard, but they did, and it was perfect. In fact, this finale is so perfect that it makes up for a lot of this arc's shortcomings, even the recaps. They were worth it after all. So in conclusion, although the Masters tournament has its shaky moments, the ending more than made up for it. Sure, things could have been better, Ash could have used older Pokemon, and some of the fights could have went differently, but as it stands, I finished this Masters 8 tournament feeling very, very satisfied. If you would have told me 3 years ago that Ash was gonna be in this big tournament with every champion, and we'd see every battle, mostly, where we'll see every companion make an appearance, and he'll be crowned the strongest trainer in the world, I would have laughed at you. But look where we are now. I don't know what the future holds for our boy, but I will tell you this. After this arc, I can proudly say that Ash Ketchum truly is the very best, like no one ever was. This tournament's rating is a 7 out of 10.